home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority.
Can I welcome everyone to the Police and Crime Committee meeting this morning? Today we'll be holding the third part of our investigation into hate crime and violence against women and girls on London's public transport system, followed by our monthly question and answer session with the Mayor's Office for Policing and Crime. Please make sure that your electronic devices are switched to silent mode to avoid any interruptions. Could I also ask our panel to make sure that the microphones, if you could grab them by the base, pull them quite close to you, otherwise we can't hear when you answer our questions. Thank you. Can I now ask our clerk, Lauren Harvey, if any apologies have been received?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Assembly Member Duval.
Thank you. Can I ask the committee to note the recommendations set out at item 2 and ask if members have any other interests to declare?
No, Susan. No.
Can we confirm the minutes of the meeting held on 19th November 2025 to be signed by me as a correct record? Can we note the completed and ongoing actions arising from previous minutes of the committee?
Noted.
Can we note the response received from the Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime to the committee's letter on the Territorial Support Group? Before I welcome our guests, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the tragic events at Bondi Beach over the weekend, and on behalf of the committee express our deepest sympathies to those affected and the Jewish community, both in London and across the world. It was a terrible, terrible thing to happen and to see. And we, as I say, extend our deepest sympathies to those who've been affected. We now move on to the third part of the committee's investigation into hate crime and violence against women and girls on London's public transport system. Can I welcome our panel, Siwan Howard, OBE, Director of Security, Policing and Enforcement for TfL, Transport for London, Mandy McGregor, Head of Policing and Community Safety, TfL, Transport for London, Chief Superintendent Chris Casey, Divisional Commander for London and the South East from the British Transport Police, or BTP, Detective Superintendent Sam Painter, Divisional Commander for London and the South East, BTP, Superintendent Paul Thomas, MO8, Roads and Traffic Policing Command, the Metropolitan Police Service, or MPS, or MET, Detective Chief Superintendent Brittany Clark, Lead Responsible Officer for Public Space at the MPS, and Chief Superintendent Sanjay Anderson, City of London Police. Welcome, panel. I'm going to move on to our questions, but I have a plea to make to both committee members and to our very large panel. Questions will be directed at panel members. I would ask our questioners to be brief and succinct because we have a lot of questions to get through. And for our panellists, whilst we absolutely love everything that you have to say, and it really informs our investigation, I would be really grateful for succinct answers, and forgive me if I do interrupt if I think things are going on. It literally is because we need to move on to the next question. So I will start, and my question is, well, actually it is to all guests, but given that we have got such a large panel, that some of you are from the same organisation, so if just one of you could answer. What do you believe is driving the rise in sexual offences and hate crime on London's public transport network, and how should these be interpreted in the context of overall crime levels? So, Superintendent Anderson, would you like to start?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of that, from a City of London policing perspective, we actually see relatively low levels of this type of crime offending happening within the city. So in terms of how we respond to that, it is absolutely through that partnership working. colleagues, I'm sure, to my left from the British Transport Police will have, through the volume of the offences that are taking place, will have a better understanding, but within the city is very small.
Thank you. DCS Clark.
Failed at the first hurdle to turn the microphone on. Apologies. I think again, from the perspective of sexual offences, I mean, obviously the Metropolitan Police has the oversight of the bus network within, when we're talking about violence against women and girls. Again, I do have my colleague here who oversees the bus network policing. I think just more broadly, I think we are seeing reductions in certainly volumes of VAUG-related crime on buses. But if I may hand to my colleague, Superintendent Thomas.
Thank you. I think the confidence for victims to come forward and report the crime, knowing they're going to be taken seriously, and the communications of how seriously the Met take their investigations into these offences. That's also the communications on buses and around the transport network, making it easy to report to ourselves, and the links that we have with colleagues from BTP and Transport for London. So there's not one doorway for those offences to be reported into. That information, if the report goes to one of our colleague agencies, comes to us very quickly and allows prompt and effective investigation of those offences.
Thank you. DS Painter.
I think similar to the colleague, we have campaigned heavily to increase reporting, and we have campaigned heavily to increase awareness of what kind of constitutes kind of wider sexual harassment, for example, ensuring that those behaviours are reported to us. We've equally looked at kind of reporting methods. So obviously our text number has seen a significant increase in terms of the offences being reported into us, and ultimately that kind of leads to our ability to, I suppose, a more informed response to these offending. So I think that increased awareness, that confidence in reporting, and those increasing reporting channels are kind of crucial to that rise. I don't know if you've got anything.
Can I just ask, DS Painter, could you move your microphone just a little bit closer to you, maybe bend it towards you a bit more as well, please? Thank you.
Sorry, is that a bit quiet?
Yeah,
is that
that's
better?
better. Thank you very much. Thank you. Chief Superintendent Casey.
Yeah, I won't repeat what's already been said, only just to maybe add a little bit of context. So in terms of the 61016 text number, I think that is really key. We've seen huge growth year on year in the number of people who text us. So last year we had about 250,000 texts into BTP. We've already seen that number this year, and we've not finished the year. So the growth in people texting us, I think, and getting in touch when they see incidents is really key, and leads to us having a greater picture of the offending. I'd definitely say in terms of more confidence, so in terms of sex offences this year, we're starting to see a small decrease in the number of sex offences, but a big increase in terms of the number that we're solving. So there is a bit that this is a 12-year campaign that we've been running with TfL and others, to grow the numbers of reports for sex offences and VAUG more broadly. And I think we're starting to get to that point where we've got a greater picture. There's still lots that we don't have reported to us. We are starting to see that we're starting to kind of, I suppose, break the back of it in terms of VAUG offending, starting to see, more offenders brought to justice. And just in terms of hate crime, I would say international events play a really big part in terms of, awful attack in 2023, the Israel-Gaza conflict that has continued, incidents that we've seen over the weekend that you've referenced, things like that do generate, increases in hate crime, and we see those reports.
Thank you. And two TfL colleagues who would like to answer. Ms McGregor.
Yeah, just to add to what Chris has said, there's been a reduction in hate crime on public transport of 8%. So, and that's from a peak when the Gaza-Israel situation. So we have seen it come down, but it's still higher than levels before October 2023. And with sex offences on public transport networks, it's around 900 offences in the 6-month period between January and June, and it's relatively stable with the year before, despite proactive campaigning to encourage reporting and make it easier for our customers to report offences on our public transport networks.
Thank you. My next question is specifically to TfL. How does TfL ensure women's safety is consistently factored into planning and design projects across the network?
Chair, thank you. You'll have heard from colleagues that the issue of violence against women and girls and the extent to which this is a significant problem both on public transport, where we know sexual predators will deliberately target public transport to commit offences, but also where public transport and public space reflects wider societal issues in terms of the prevalence of sexual harassment and other forms of unwanted sexual behaviour. This has been a huge campaign and issue for us for over, 10, nearly 15 years now. So as TfL, clearly we're guided by the Mayor's transport strategy, the Mayor's violence against women and girls strategy, and our own action on inclusion. And what that's led to over the last 10 years is the development of a really significant programme of activity which seeks to look at every opportunity that we can address reducing the risk and likelihood of violence against women and girls, but also increasing recognition that this is an issue that we want to tackle, so we overcome the normalisation of sexual harassment and sexual offences. And I'm just going to give sort of one example specifically to the question that you raised. So you'll be aware of all our work on public transport, but more recently we've done work with our colleagues in MOPAC on women's safety audit. So it's about bringing women's voices and women's experiences into the whole journey as we think about design, we think about journeys to stations, and ensuring those considerations are factored into any new projects that we have, any enhancements we have, and that we are properly reflecting women's experiences and feelings of safety as well as experience of safety in those design considerations. So we have women's safety audits as a key factor in our design decisions, in our planning decisions, when we look to upgrade stations and transport hubs, as well as into the activity that we deliver in partnership with the police on public transport itself. And Mandy might be able to give the specific. We have a specific recent example of where so recently. So for example, the women's safety audit influenced a decision that was called in by the Mayor for a planning development in North Greenwich, which was the development of student accommodation, over 600 units of student accommodation, and that was the first time that such a significant development had used a women's safety audit as a fundamental factor to determine actually how safe will the residents be feeling and that was a factor in the planning decision that was then made. So we are now trying to ensure that we have a comprehensive programme across all aspects of what TfL does and does in collaboration with others to be able to make London safer for women and girls and make London safer from people from all sorts of minority and disadvantaged communities who face discrimination and can face hate when both travelling on our public transport network but also in public space.
Thank you very much. Assemblymember Garbett.
Thank you. My question really follows on nicely to what you were just saying. So, yeah, we know that research shows that disabled women, women from ethnic minority backgrounds and younger women and low-income women face heightened risks of violence against women and girls offences on the transport network. So I guess it's picking up on what you were saying there around the voices that you're hearing from and what our biggest gap in understanding is about how these different groups experience violence against women and girls, harassment, intimidation on transport. So, yeah, could you speak specifically to our understanding or lack of for those specific groups?
So you're absolutely right to highlight the importance of intersectionality. So it's the double discrimination almost, or double disadvantage that is faced. So we know that women and girls are clearly fearful of using public transport and public space at certain times, and because of feelings of fear, and then that's compounded if you're a disabled woman, a woman from a black and minority ethnic background. So with Transport for London, what we do, and we do this in really strong partnership with the Met and BTP and the city, is we have a really active stakeholder team who work with those organisations that amplify the voices and experiences of disabled Londoners, of Londoners from different minority ethnic groups, different religious communities, to ensure that that's informing and feeding in and feeding back on the work that we are delivering. But more recently, and as I'm sure you'll have seen, the Mayor has established a task force which brings together the key stakeholders from within who give real rich insight from violence against women and girls, but also in terms of hate crime, so that we can, it's an opportunity for them to really give us some critical and constructive feedback on the work that we're doing and help set our ambition for the next, for the next 5 years. As I said, we've been running this campaign and this programme and delivering this strategy for over 10 years now. So the task force is a really excellent opportunity for us to take proper time to really hear from the voices and those stakeholders from a wide range of different groups to understand what they think about what we're doing and what our priorities should be next.
So you feel like we're getting that breadth of voices, and you feel like we're getting a deep understanding of their experiences? Would you say there's anywhere we could be improving?
Well, it's one of those areas we can always improve. I mean...
Yeah, absolutely. We know that disability hate crime is one of the most underreported hate crime categories, so there's definitely room for improvement there, in addition to the stakeholder community engagement we do, and that's part of our operational, the way that the police work in terms of engaging with the communities, but also the stakeholder engagement, is really relying on some of these stakeholders and the insight they get to the research report. United Response did a report on disability hate crime, and I don't think we were surprised by some of the findings in there. I mean, they're shocking and sobering just how prevalent some of this is, and that's a national report. But we really benefit from the insight that our partners and stakeholders bring. You know, they really understand the issues of community groups. You know, Tell Mama, others have got, recent reports that we digest and we work through systematically to try and improve it, even though we don't have the reporting data to the police.
That's good to hear. And just on disability hate crime, in November at our meeting we heard from Inclusion London, the Deaf and Disabled People's Organisation, that there's no disability hate crime action plan across the London transport system, which is something that they have been calling for, and I just wondered if people had thoughts on the benefits of that.
We don't have a hate crime plan by type of hate crime. Part of that is because of intersectionality. We have hate crime plan. That's what we want to do through the task force as well. So the task force for us is a critical friend. We really need their insight in terms of what groups that are experiencing out on our network and the challenges that they have when they're reporting it. We need evidence from them about what works in other places, and so we can, and then also looking to co-design with them some of the,
Was there any other comments from anyone around the disability hate crime action plan, or any comments on anyone? No? No, everyone looking a bit blank. Yep. Okay, back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Assemblymember Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, panel. I think you're absolutely right to, as part of understanding what's going on, it's obviously crucial to understand the kind of profile of the likely victims of this, but I think also important to try and understand the profile of the perpetrators. So what data do you have, and I guess this probably to TfL, BTP and Met, I guess, about the profile of the perpetrators, whether that's people who are just reported or whether it's people who ultimately are charged and prosecuted.
Yeah, I can certainly answer from, obviously, in terms of violence against women and girls, how, unsurprisingly, the perpetrators are male. And I don't think that would be a surprise to anyone, the kind of panel members today. So what I would say about that is, which is why we really actively ask that kind of active bystander intervention, because we need to have kind of male allyship, kind of ensure that we're driving those behaviours and challenging those behaviours of men. And I think, that the other thing I would say about it is obviously we don't always identify every suspect, so some of the descriptions can be difficult, so that is a gap in our data, but primarily, it is a male offenders who are committing these offences.
Can I just add, for hate crime, I don't think it's as clear in terms of the offender group. it can be anyone. So it's not as clear-cut as in terms of violence against women and girls. And when we talk about...
I'm sorry, I really still can't hear you. Could you move the microphone closer to you altogether, by the base?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Forward. I don't know which.
I was just saying the offender profile for hate crime isn't as clear as it is for violence against women and girls. And when we're talking about violence against women and girls, from a TfL perspective, a lot of the focus is on sexual offences and sexual harassment, because that's where women and girls are disproportionately impacted. But with hate crime, it can be anyone, and usually it starts over an altercation about something else. It's a bit different in terms of the nature of offending from violence against women and girls. Even though there are clear parallels and the approach can be similar, there are differences within these two types of crimes.
Thank you. Clearly, as far as VORG is concerned, then yeah, as you say, obviously it's going to be predominantly men that are doing that. But beyond just simple questions of sex and gender, is there other data beneath that? The sort of cultural issues that need to be investigated as part of it, because you've got to get the overall understanding of what's going on if you can have a really concerted attempt to tackle it. So just are there data, or are there gaps in that data, in which cases are there things that you're looking to do to improve the collection of data and the wider understanding of what's really going on?
Yeah, thank you. From the Met point of view, it's that wider picture, and it's been able to pick the data up from colleagues as well in BTP and TfL of not just the individuals perpetrating these offences, but where we identify linked series across the network. So obviously the Met is a very, very wide place, and quite often things that happen on one BCU level on a transport network, that could transition to any other area of London or any other area in that footprint. So it's key for us to identify and work collegiately with borough colleagues to identify where series and offenders are using the transport network as a potential opportunity footprint to be able to operate, and it's not just a one-off incident. So we look at linked series, look at various areas, look at the geographical locations, and look at the victimology as well as the suspect types as well, getting all that information into one place with ourselves, sharing it with BTP colleagues and TfL, and then within the Roads and Transport Policing Command we can deploy across the Met to put our resources where we think these offences might be happening and target those people we identify through that information gathering and, as you say, the profiling or the identification of people who are suspected of committing multiple offences.
One final quick follow-up. How much of that data, obviously anonymised and collated, but how much of that is ultimately published so that the wider community can know what's going on, or is it just held internally?
Obviously, there are serious restrictions about what data we can share, and obviously for ongoing criminal investigations. I'd have to come back to you as to how much we actually publish in the public domain, but internally within the wider Met, we share that with borough colleagues and with other specialist departments, as well as the BCUs and BTP colleagues.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before we move on, can I just very quickly, DS Payne, to pick up something with you? You talked about the bystander training. Is that targeted specifically at men?
It's not targeted specifically at men. I'm probably more making the point. I think, in terms of kind of male allyship within this, it's a broad understanding. But I do think there is a place for kind of men to challenge male behaviour as well, given that the vast majority of perpetrators are men.
And do you have a gender breakdown of who attends the bystander training? We've got more questions about it later, but as you raised it, I'd be quite interested to know.
So, well, it's in terms of our campaigns, so it's not necessarily training. We obviously deliver kind of training internally, but it's a campaign around kind of active bystander as opposed to training, so it's not aimed at particular genders from that point.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you. This is to a Met officer, if I can, please. With the Met no longer investigating non-crime hate incidents, what alternative mechanisms will ensure that patterns of escalating hostility are recognised and intelligence are shared with TfL and the BTP?
So the topic of intelligence is very pertinent. Obviously, there are so many bus journeys and so many transport hubs and various areas across the transport network. The police can't be everywhere. So as colleagues have already described here, the active bystander training, using TfL staff and the close relationships we've got with TfL to be able to get that information up the system into the Met Police's eyes and to TfL's eyes is very key for us to be able to identify where these offences are taking place or behaviours are leading towards offences taking place, so we can have established patrols or high visibility patrols or work with colleagues to review CCTV and try and identify offenders. So the intelligence flow is really key to how we operate and how we plan our taskings on a daily and weekly basis.
And does it work well? Because we saw that dreadful incident, and I've forgotten where it was, with somebody that was being looked for, and he was actually actually it was on, I think it was British Rail property. So do you share, if you're looking for somebody, with BTP, and that works well? Yeah,
the information flow is all both ways. Specifically within the Roads and Transport Policing Command and TfL, we have twice daily GRIP meetings where TfL are in the room with us and we share information from the transport network, identify any key developing areas of concern for us, and obviously we link with TfL colleagues who are in the same building so we can share that information with TfL, with BTP as well.
Excellent. How are officers trained to recognise and respond to behaviours that fall short of criminal thresholds but actually act as a clear warning indicator of risk?
It goes back to core policing skills and be able to identify what officers are seeing on the ground in an escalation process from behaviours that could escalate from, as you suggested, to a threshold which is the criminal footprint. BTP colleagues have brought a system in place to identify that, and I'll pass on to my BTP colleagues who will possibly talk about your warning notices and your...
Are you concerned, though, because I'm more than aware that the Met police officers are much younger and newer, if you get... It's not the age, it's the time they've been in situ. And certainly over the years that I've spent with various police officers, that they get to know, they get to sense, and you just do, don't you? You just get a feeling sometimes and you know what to look for. Are you having more issues now because so many of the new recruits are just that, they're very new, as opposed to having old uns, as they call themselves, in stations at the lower levels?
We've always had the experience of churn throughout the police service, and our officers get to know the environments that they work in. Frontline policing is the core bedrock of policing across London and the UK. So being a response officer or an officer who works in the Safer Transport footprint at the moment, or the Roads and Transport Policing Command, they get to know the environment that they work in very, very well. We have core skills training when people start. That builds up to experience, but also regular refresher training, continual professional development and sharing work and sharing experiences with colleagues for an omnicompetence of skill set across the police really solves that problem.
The problem is we're moving staff all over the place at the moment, aren't we, in the Met, which must be giving issues. On October the 2nd this year, there was a series of anti-Semitic protests taking place at Liverpool Street Station, with protesters screaming pro-Palestinian chants such as "From the river to the sea" and also "Israel is a terrorist state." How are you managing hate crimes at protests directed towards Israel and the Jewish community? And is a train station, do you think, a suitable area for these sort of demonstrations?
Sorry, we're talking about Liverpool Street Station?
Yes.
So I'll pass that to my BTP colleagues and city colleagues.
Okay.
Thank you. So, so in reverse, in terms of a train station, sometimes it's definitely not an ideal location for protest activity, but, the same rules apply as they do on street, in the sense of trying to balance those rights of individuals to protest so that the station can still operate. So I think as long as the station can safely operate, and doesn't impact it in terms of critical national infrastructure, etc., then we have to find a way to balance those rights as long as it's lawful activity. So there may be things that are said that will shock and offend and that maybe we don't like or people don't like, but there is that balance. And in terms of the officers dealing with those protests, sometimes it is a challenge in terms of numbers, in terms of officers versus the scale of a protest, for example. So sometimes you may not arrest at the time, but there will be that evidence gathering and opportunity afterwards. And it was just that legal challenge around some of that terminology and whether it meets the threshold or not. And we found, obviously, in some cases it has not.
Yeah, but in that particular instance, as an instance in a station, if you've got a demonstration in the streets, if there's a Jewish person walking past and all these dreadful things are being shouted, they can skirt round the area, they can move down different streets. If it's in a station and they've got to get to a train, they have got to go past this with all these terrible chants. In that case, do you not think it is intimidating and that actually these demonstrations should not be allowed in an area that people will have to go past them in order to get to where they've got to be?
Yeah, so I'd say when the Public Order Act was updated, BTP used that legislation very quickly to prohibit these sorts of demonstrations, for example, at King's Cross Station. But in the fullness of time, the court decided in that case, I haven't got all of the exact details, I'd be happy to share it afterwards, but the court decided that the threshold wasn't met. We felt it was at the time. Yeah. We got Secretary of State approval to prohibit those assemblies and ultimately to prosecute individuals. But in the fullness of time, that wasn't that the court didn't share the same view that we did on that.
Outrageous, absolutely outrageous. Anti-Semitic hate crime rose by 278.9%, with 2,068 offences recording from July 23 to 24, and that's according to the Met Police data. Has the same increase been reflected in crime trends on the public transport? And do you notice an uptick when there are massive demonstrations?
Yes, definitely. So we've seen similar large increases. So towards the end of 2023, we saw that big increase in terms of anti-Semitic hate crime. And that is in the context of, the Jewish community, actually a very small percentage of the population, actually, and then even a smaller percentage of those who are Jewish that decide to travel anyway on the network. So, that is a massive increase. And we did see exactly that increase that the Met did as well.
Yes, and I have to tell you from people that contact me, they are terrified in and around these things. So when you've got demonstrations in the actual station, it's outrageous. And I'm sorry you weren't supported in that. You should have been. And it's a worry. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you. Moving on now to our questions on policing London's transport network. Assemblymember Desai.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, panel. I think it's been some years before COVID that we had all three policing bodies in London at the same meeting. So I welcome this particular session. My question to all our to a representative of each of the three bodies here, because we're up against time. In what situations do TfL, BTP, and the Met and the city collaborate, and how effective is this joint working? If I could start off with TfL.
Thank you for the question. So as TfL, we see ourselves very much as the glue that brings together the London policing agencies to work in collaboration with us on a whole range of issues, but particularly in terms of our endeavours to end violence against women and girls and to tackle hate crime. So I would say our collaboration and partnership working is very strong. It's been very long-lived, and there is we create that coordination between the policing agencies, because we recognise journeys in London, will involve crossing policing jurisdictions. Every journey starts from starts on the street, and will take multiple modes. So it's our responsibility to make sure that the experience of that journey is consistent. The support from our colleagues and from police is absolutely consistent, and that people are safe and feel safe throughout that journey.
I suppose just kind of support what Shuan said in terms of that integration is really key, but it's on multiple fronts. It's, from an intelligence sharing perspective, which is, day-to-day happening across the agencies. There's also a piece of work that BTP is doing around unified security and policing, so USP, which is around how do we work with other statutory partners, but also how do we draw in all of the security that exists across the industry so we can be more coordinated. So there's huge amounts of security that operates across bus and rail, and it's about how we make sure on a day-to-day basis we have those huddles, those conversations, and make sure that we're tasking in a coordinated way so that you don't underdose or overdose a problem effectively. So you don't go to a location where there's already stacks of resource. So we kind of, between us, define where are the priorities and effectively decide who's got the right skills to deal with those issues.
So, I mean, apart from specific operations, are there sort of regular meetings to coordinate?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, particularly between BTP and TfL, there's regular meetings, there's regular performance strategy meetings, etc. I know TfL do similar with the Met, and then between us as partners, we do again, we've got regular engagement with MO8, and again, when you get to specific locations like Liverpool Street, for example, the city and ourselves engage closely around those.
And before I move on to the Met, without going into too much detail, I mean, do you sort of have access to one another's resources like CCTV systems and stuff like that?
There's definitely, it's probably not as seamless as I suppose we would want it to be. I think there is that ability to work across different CCTV systems. There's a lot of work going on with TfL and BTP around how we ingest more of their CCTV. I know obviously the Met have got really, I won't answer for Paul, but really good setup in terms of access to the bus CCTV at Palestra. So I think in independent agencies we've got that, but then we've got that daily contact and engagement when there are incidents to be able to share that information quickly.
Well, maybe that could be one of our recommendations as to how to make it more seamless. If we can move on to the Met, and either yourself, Brittany, or Paul.
Yeah, thank you. It's really a close working relationship, particularly with BTP, TfL in the city. It's not just in proactive operations, but also data sharing around defence types, the victimology and the suspect footprint that we've got at the moment. As I described previously, the GRIP meetings that we have for emerging threats, we have TfL in the room for those meetings, and we link closely with BTP for that. But also the engagement activity. So, for example, Finsbury Park Station, we've got an awful lot of engagement and proactive activity that works in not just that environment for ourselves, but across the Met. That straddles 3 command units. So it's really working with colleagues across frontline policing, with BTP, TfL and ourselves to make sure that we provide the best possible service.
And from sorry, Brittany.
No, so I just wanted to add a bit of context as well. From so I come at this really from a local policing perspective. I don't work in the transport command, but I think and this also comes from my day job as a BCU commander. So I work across both Hackney and Tower Hamlets, and every month I chair a local tasking meeting which has MO8 colleagues in it. So we're kind of bringing the transport side in, which obviously, as Paul's reiterated, the fact that then docks into BTP and the TfL relationship. So if, for example, we have an incident or a series of incidents where the transport hub is either being used or facilitating offending, that will come into my local tasking meeting as well. So I'm able to direct my local resources and link them in with Paul's resources, and then obviously that can link up to BTP where appropriate, whether it's on the if it's on the rail links as well. I think more broadly, and Paul's touched on the Finsbury Park site, but there's lots of replication of that around the Met within the Clearhold build, and I think having also personally sat within that Finsbury Park Clearhold build sort of strategic layer, and colleagues along the panel have been in that as well. I think that really does show a very tangible way in which we've brought together operational activity and kind of had some really strategic, very, very useful governance, I think. And then furthermore, where we have sexual offending, so really focusing on VAUG, we also have a Pan-London Link Series Sexual Offence Board, also chaired monthly, where BTP and obviously Met colleagues are involved in that as well. So we're able to task out specifically on bespoke operations and bespoke Link Series jobs where we can work together and be very collaborative. So I hope that kind of gives a little bit of a sort of finer detail on how the teams all work together.
Yeah, I should say that I also represent Tower Hamlets and City of London. So over to you, Sanjay.
Yeah, no, thank you, Assembly Member. So my colleagues have pretty much summed up how we work collaboratively, and the key thing around that is around the sharing of that intelligence, the sharing of that data that helps to then inform the operational awareness and activity and targeting of the resources. And to an earlier point that was made, ensuring that we're not putting resources in places where there's already sufficient resources. But it also does mean that with the proximity of the train stations, in particular within the City of London footprint, We work very closely with British Transport Police. We have a team that operates out of Bishopsgate Police Station. And again, that's linked to that proximity. It allows for some of the practical sharing of information, such as the CCTV that you talked about, although it isn't an automated way. Thanks.
Just moving to my final question. This is to BTP and the Met. Beyond enforcement, how are the Met and BTP supporting people who feel safe on who feel unsafe on public transport to rebuild confidence in travelling? If you want to start off, Paul.
Thank you, Assembly Member. It's really around highlighting how importantly the Met take the reporting of crimes and those who, not just victims of Vogue or hate crime, but also those who adjust their lifestyle because they're fearful of that, and obviously they're victims in their own right as well. So it's getting a clear message, the visibility of our staff at harm spots or areas where they're required to be, linking in with colleagues to make sure that we're up to date in our information and our tactical response is proportionate to what we're doing, but also ensuring that it's easy for people to report any offences or any information or anything that they see that the Chair mentioned previously regarding that level of activity that doesn't quite hit the criminal threshold, but is a behaviour that's of concern to ourselves and concern to transport staff as well.
Chris.
Thank you. I'd probably just to build on that, it's definitely around all of the campaign work that we do with the Met and with TfL and others, the campaign work to promote, that understanding of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and sometimes that can be a bit of a grey space, but we, really keen to report that, get those reports so then we can make that assessment as to whether it is a criminal matter or not. I've already touched on the 61016 again, we're seeing that big increase in people using that method to report to us, and I think hopefully that does start to build confidence. But there is also a big element for us, which is around promoting the results that we get. So actually really leaning in, using social media channels that people are using, particularly around victims, to show actually somebody texted us, we met them 2 stations down the line, we've arrested the offender, and they're in our cells now. And to give them that confidence, actually if you text us, there will be generally a very quick response and we'll take action.
Can I comment the BTP's poster campaign around harassment and especially violence against women? It's very, very visible, so well done. I was going to ask a question about the experiences of Jewish Londoners, but Assembly Member Susan Hall has already addressed those issues, and I totally agree with everything that she has said about the experiences of Jewish Londoners, particularly when those marches take place in central London. Steve Reid, the committee secretary, on Monday announced at the meeting where I was present that he would be launching an anti-Semitism action plan within days. Have any of you been consulted about this action plan with a view to your input? Matt? And if you're not aware, then...
I personally haven't, no.
Yeah. What is the opportunity to address this with your superiors and get your input in before it's too late?
I haven't personally either.
Well, the same unsolicited advice to you as well. BTP?
It would be the same answer, but we'd be very keen to play a part in that.
Yeah. And through the mayor and through TfL as an organisation. Fine. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assembly Member Lord Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. I think my question's been answered, but I just want to do my quick supplementary. I want to ask TfL this and the BTP as well. A little while ago, we had posters put on the Underground network by a group called Palestine Solidarity Campaign. They appeared to be TfL adverts. I don't believe they were. The first thing is, were you aware of that? It's not the first time it's happened, by the way. So that's my first question. Were TfL aware of that?
Thank you for the question. So we do frequently see acts of what we call subvertising, so the subversion of advertising on TfL's network for a whole variety of different political groups. When that's brought to our attention, we make sure that our cleaners will remove all that unauthorised advertising from across our network. Clearly, advertising is a valuable source of revenue to TfL, and unauthorised subvertising is not something that we would tolerate. So as soon as it's brought to our attention, mostly through social media as well. Is when it's first it's noticed, then we will ensure that there's a thorough cleaning regime, checking every single advert, and you'll be aware that some of them are very subtle in terms of looking like the initial advert, but changed in particular ways. We'll ensure that they are removed.
And this to the Met. What's done, because these would appear to be hate crimes, there's certainly a large section of the public, myself included, who consider them hate crime. Are these things followed up? Because they often have details on them, contact details and Twitter details and all sorts. So are they followed up?
I can't talk to the specific examples that the panel member talks about. Unfortunately, I don't have the details of that, but any crime that was reported to us as described would be thoroughly investigated by the Met.
Would it be possible to find out if this particular group was followed up?
I'll take that away. And
thank you, appreciate that, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you. Assembly Member Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not quite sure how Palestine solidarity fits with the violence against women and girls theme, but
Okay, can we just move on to the question, please?
But I want to come back to the issue of what is actually happening then and there, and how well you're able to use that information, because I think some of what we said in the first answers has been about the improvement in people feeling confident to report, and people feeling confident to report very much, I think, links together with the sense that there will actually be some kind of action taken that's going to be effective, and that suspects, perpetrators will be dealt with. So I'd like to start with the Met, and I don't mind whether that's Brittany Clark or Paul Thomas who answers me, but how effectively do current incident reporting systems enable rapid identification of suspects and real-time intelligence sharing with all of the others on the panel, so that action can be taken very quickly?
Thank you, panel member. So the rapid reporting would be whichever means that comes into the police, whether that is members of staff, the victim themselves making a call, or in some instances TfL bus drivers in our world would report that they've got an incident that goes on. That call or that information will be graded against threat, harm and risk, and would then result in a deployment of Met resources to the appropriate level, whether that's an immediate response through either a safer transport footprint, or whether that's a local BCU asset that would go to the incident that's being dealt with, or if it wasn't, if it required subsequent intelligence gathering or information, or if it was just a criminal information report that came to us, it would be assessed against those levels. So there is no difference in the speed of the reporting and response to a crime on the transport network than there is to a BCU or a local borough or any other crime within the Met. It's all assessed.
With so much CCTV available on the transport system, I mean, we all love CSI, and they just flip through trillions of facial recognition stuff, and oh look, there's someone, we've just recognised them. I mean, how quickly are you able to, if you like, respond to something where you've got a repeat offender, someone who has perhaps been prolific on public transport? Is that something you can respond to more quickly than others? I don't believe that CSI really exists. Well, maybe it does in your offices, but is that something that can be responded to quickly?
I'm not going to comment on the CSI, obviously, but I think certainly we've got a really close relationship with Transport for London, and we're really very well placed to link in with colleagues who can retrieve from the bus network very quickly CCTV, which is often of a quality better than that we get out in the communities, where it might not be as available to us as quickly. So we've got a really robust system for doing that, recovering the CCTV, progressing an investigation, and also getting a statement from the bus driver, members of staff within the footprint, and hopefully, if we can secure people at the scene, the people and the witnesses who've been there. Unfortunately, on the transport network, it's a transient population. People move off, and we might not be able to get in contact with those people, or they may just want to make a report, and that may have a slight delay in us. But we obviously, the evidence that we have available to us at the scene is really probably the...
No, which is why it's important that if, you know, particularly bus drivers, for example, feel comfortable to be part of that process, you've then got more than one source of evidence. You've got what the bus driver saw, as well as what has been recorded on the CCTV.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a close relationship with Transport for London. They're probably best placed to discuss the relationship with the bus drivers, but we definitely are in a position where those statements are forthcoming.
Well, that is where my questions are just about to go to. Thank you very much for that answer, because obviously we were just talking about staff and staff who perhaps intervene in some cases. Yeah. So we're talking about very active, perhaps not even bystander here. And respond to, violence against women and girls that they've seen, or hate crimes generally. How, what kind of learning has there been from that staff experience? How has that fed into staff training and general policies? And I'd also like you to answer the point about what kind of support staff get in those circumstances, because we do want people to be intervening or at least taking action, but we also want them to do it safely. What training do they get? But then also we need to support them when they've done that. So it's support before so they know what to do, and then support afterwards if they've been involved in an incident as well.
So in terms of sexual harassment training, we've rolled that out to all of our directly employed frontline staff. So all London Underground staff have been trained. Bus drivers, there's 25,000 of them, have a different training package, but it covers hate crime and sexual harassment scenarios in that, so they know what to do. And that builds on top of their core training in terms of if there's an incident on the bus or at a station or on train, about how to get support. It's also worth saying that within our control centres, there's BTPs on the same floor next door to the rail control centre for London Underground and our rail networks, and they're passing information over there as well. And then the same, we have MPS in the surface transport control room, all in Palestra, working together. So that can help speed things up there as well. It's a really good point about support for staff after it. So after an incident. And we do that. We've got a work-related violence and aggression team that's there that's able to support staff. We work really closely with BTP to acknowledge and recognise their efforts as well, and we're just expanding our life-saving and safeguarding awards because we want to encourage that behaviour. We want to encourage them to intervene safely. Or take some action. It could be just call police if they don't feel safe for themselves. But we want to encourage that, and we know how difficult it can be in some situations, and so we want to recognise their efforts. And our staff are doing extraordinary things every day. We've got a group of staff, our transport support and enforcement officers, I know that's many of you will be aware of. They have particular training and particular skills, and they work really closely with our police partners. And they will come across suspicious activity on a daily basis, and they will call for BTP support. They will try and deal with it, but if this is a crime taking place, then they will call for police support.
Can I just dig in slightly around the...
Yeah, sure.
I'll bring you in a second. On the bus drivers, the 25,000 bus drivers, obviously the buses are franchises, so do Go Ahead, Abellio, other bus operators are available. Are they all bought into doing this training with their staff? I think that's
Absolutely.
really...
The training is across all of our bus operators.
It is, okay,
yes.
So all of the franchisees. Sorry, I've just interrupted you. You want to come in as well?
Oh. So I was just going to make that point, which is that recognition, and I think it goes to Assembly Member Hall's point as well, which is that actually when we talk about violence against women and girls and hate crime, our staff are often victims of this. So we need to recognise that actually, stations are a workplace for our staff, and they are victimised and intimidated by hate crime and violence against women and girls. And we have a really and that's true for our bus drivers as well, who are often the victims of hate. When disputes might arise, a bus might be late, but we see hateful language poured out at our bus drivers. So I wanted to add to what Mandy was saying, that we have a really comprehensive approach in terms of supporting our colleagues when they experience this form of violence and aggression, ensuring that they have follow-up support, ensuring that their managers are capable and competent to provide that support both in the immediacy but also in the aftermath, because we know how traumatic experiencing repeated incidents of hate or harassment harassment at work, can be. So we have a really comprehensive approach in place, which works across both our frontline directly employed colleagues, but also those that work for our operators.
Okay, well, that was going to be my next question that I moved on to, was to say that recent figures show that assaults on TfL staff are rising year on year. And again, I'm not sure if that is to do with staff feeling more comfortable to report or whether it really is rising. I suspect it really is rising just because, I think we know that everything has become more black and white and social media has tended to sort of ratchet things up. And what specific steps are you taking to keep frontline staff safe?
So I'll start this and then my colleagues can come in. So as I started describing, so we've had in place with our policing partners a strategy to eliminate the risk of workplace violence and aggression. It is absolutely intolerable, but anyone should come to work and have to experience aggression, violence, intimidation, assault, and particularly when that's overlaid with hate or with a strong sexual element to it. So clearly we've made our position very clear, and what we have been doing over the last 5 years with our policing partners is that we have invested in making body-worn cameras, essential kit for all our frontline colleagues. We have invested in training in terms of conflict de-escalation and the management of situations. And one of which Mandy's already mentioned, is that we've invested significantly in the capability, which are the transport, support and enforcement officers. So we now have, over 500 so uniform enforcement officers whose primary purpose out on the transport network is to protect frontline colleagues from violence and aggression and from the forms of antisocial behaviour that can make our transport network feel unsafe, and specifically then also to safeguard vulnerable customers who are travelling, to make sure that young people, make sure women and girls, and make sure people from minority communities are proactively supported when travelling. So we have those key elements in place to keep our colleagues safe. And what we've seen over the last 3 years is that for physical incidents against our directly employed staff, we have seen a reduction of over 10% in the experience of physical incidents, and we have seen a significant rise in the reporting of aggression and harassment and what we call gesture abuse and intimidatory words. So we are really confident that the seriousness that we are putting on workplace violence and aggression is resulting in exactly with what we want to see, which is much more reporting of intimidation and verbal abuse and aggression, and a reduction in the likelihood and the experience of violence by our frontline colleagues. But as you say, we look very carefully at what's going on in other sectors, what's happening in retail, what's happening in other frontline professions, emergency workers, and seeing what's happening across the capital, learning from their experience to ensure that we are keeping our transport workers safe.
Thank you. And did you want to add something further to that, Mandy? No, it was pretty comprehensive.
I think Siwan covered it very well. Thank you.
No, thank you. So, and that's. I think making people feel safe on the bus, whether they're the person that's driving the bus, the person that's providing security on the bus, or whether it's the people travelling on the bus, is all of a piece. Thank you very much for covering that all off. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assembly Member Small-Edwards.
So my question is to the Met and to the BTP, and it's that many victims have said that a key reason for not reporting is a lack of confidence that police action will follow. Do you think a more unified reporting system giving witnesses and victims more confidence to report crimes would be effective?
Thank you, Senator Member. I think the not one door policy for reporting is really key to how we can enhance that experience for those making the complaints. Any complaint that goes into BTP, any complaint that goes into TfL is escalated to ourselves as soon as possible. So we are victim-centred on our approach, so we take those instances extremely seriously, and we take every possible step to reassure victims that they are being listened to and they are being heard and supported, and we will investigate it to the best possible services of the Met Police.
I think there's probably, I won't repeat that, there's a lot to it in terms of the reporting methods, and as I've touched on, the tech system I think is a really good route for people to reporting in terms of BTP, and we've seen that used massively. The big piece is then about that, building that confidence that we'll take the report seriously, responding to it quickly, because we find that victims disengage the longer that takes. So we've really focused on how do we grip that very quickly. How do we offer to victims an opportunity, particularly in terms of VOG offending, for us to go out on there if it's a regular journey, to say actually we'll come out on your next journey with you if you're up for that, and we'll see if we can identify that offender then and there. There's a lot in that space. I think there is also wider issues, I guess, around public confidence in policing just in general, and you see that kind of drip of conduct issues, and terrible media stories. I can only talk from a BTP perspective, but we've really massively ramped up in terms of our professional standards, our internal reporting, and that drip of cases that come out. Often it is around us, finding offending that we found internally, that we've unearthed, that colleagues have reported, and then we're taking swift action and dismissing people who don't have a place in policing. So hopefully, over time, that will build that confidence.
Thank you both very much. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. And my apologies, Assembly Member Roberts, for the last set of questioning. I missed you out. Not deliberately, I just can't read my own scribbling, so please do ask your question.
Not a problem at all. Thank you, Chair. Good morning. This is a question for the Met, and it's will the number of safer transport team officers and PCSOs change as a result of the renegotiation of TfL funding?
Thank you, Assembly Members. So we're currently in discussions with Transport for London to model exactly what the process and what our footprint is going to be, and we're working really hard with TfL colleagues in that space. We are looking to enhance the strongest ever neighbourhoods across the Met and support our frontline policing colleagues. So rather than having bespoke smaller teams who are on duty at certain times, it's the omnicompetence and it's the ability to upskill and share our learning with colleagues across the BCUs to ensure that we've got a wider footprint of people who are trained and able to deal with offences on the transport network.
The broader issue, I mean, one of the issues that we've got is that we've already been told yesterday at the Budget Committee that that PCSOs will no longer enforce on red routes. We're receiving correspondence. All of us are receiving, mountains of correspondence on this, and obviously, if that money is then going to be going to a third party, a private sector partner or contractor, then obviously that means there's less money going into the Metropolitan Police to pay for uniformed officers. So, as a result of this change, is that a guarantee that we won't be seeing a reduction in police officers because you're losing a funding stream? And we're already being told that the Met is absolutely, not got two brass farthings to rub together. So, yes.
So I'm not in a position here to talk about funding streams coming into the Met. What I can reassure you is that any policing footprint and the ongoing policing footprint is aligned to the Commissioner's New Met for London priorities and New Met for London 2 priorities, and in supporting our colleagues in frontline policing.
Okay. And with the removal of the safer transport team, so taking safer transport teams away from policing public transport and bringing them into the general community, how is that really speaking to a desire to ensure that there's a crackdown of hate crime against violence against women and girls, and on public transport, which is what we're here to investigate today? Because we're moving from the specialised into the generic, which is not necessarily always the best way forward.
So no, that's not correct. We're not moving from the specialised into the general. As I've said, we're supporting the strongest ever neighbourhoods. We're allowing the expertise from the transport footprint to be working with our local colleagues on the BCUs. The tasking coordination process, the governance process, and our deployment footprint information sharing with TfL will result in those officers and officers across the BCUs still targeting crime and antisocial behaviour on the transport network, and also looking to support the violence against women and girls and hate crime footprint the Met takes so seriously.
Okay, yeah, you'll forgive me if I'm lightly sceptical. We had this argument put forward for the Royal Parks Police, and we found that our sergeant from the Royal Parks Police in Richmond, one terms covering Richmond and Bushy Park, has been moved to the ward furthest away from the Royal Parks footprint with it is now policing Heathfield, which is not, so all of that knowledge, expertise has been wasted. It's gone. It hasn't been subsumed into the broader policing hive mind, for want of a better term. But thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to questions around prevention and raising awareness. Assembly Member Best.
Thank you. Mandy, if I could come to you first, perhaps. I don't know if you want to talk about, with a mind for time, some of the more successful campaigns you've had around prevention, but particularly any evaluation evidence you have behind those campaigns that show their success, or where they could be improved.
Yeah, I mean, we're really proud of the campaigns that we run in TfL with our partners. So they all have the police logos on them, and their messages are amplified through the Met's own communications and the BTP's communications. But hopefully you're aware of two of the new campaigns that launched in October during National Hate Crime Awareness Week. One of those campaigns, Crime Has Consequences, is mainly speaking to offenders and just sending out a message that that type of behaviour won't be tolerated and we will act on it. We've had really positive feedback from stakeholders and from members of the public about that. Sometimes they don't even realise that some of the offences that are featuring in those campaigns are a crime and something can be done about it. So we've had positive feedback on that. And then in parallel to that is an expansion of our bystander campaign. We know that police and enforcement officers can't be everywhere, but our customers are. And London Travel Watch did some research, I think in 2023, that showed that around 64% of Londoners wanted to do more when they were witnessing this type of behaviour but didn't know how. So on the back of that research, which is really helpful insight for us, we developed a bystander awareness campaign. And that's giving people practical, easy, in-the-moment things that they can do. It doesn't rely on you having to have completed a training package. And our advice is always to ignore the perpetrator. Don't put yourselves in a unsafe situation. Support the victim. We'd often hear from victims that they were actually more traumatised by the fact that, you know, it could have been a crowded tube carriage and no one did anything. And a lot of people just didn't know how or what they could do. And I think they were fearful that they might make the situation worse for the victim or themselves. So what we have been doing proactively for the last couple of years now, since the London Travel Watch research, is giving people those safe techniques that they can do. It could be just a total distraction. Do you have the time? Do you know how do I get to the next step? But our recent campaign builds on that, and it's Act Like a Friend. And it's based on real life stories. And so we've just done that through a video and then through our poster campaign. They are real scenarios where bystanders have intervened and have been able to de-escalate or prevent those incidents. And so we're just building on that. You know, we're not expecting our passengers to be able to police a network. You know, that's the job of Matt and BTP and ourselves. But they do play an important role, can be really powerful in de-escalating. And when we talk about making the network a hostile place for offenders, of course we're talking about criminal justice outcomes for those people as well, but also knowing that the passengers are around them, are aware of what they're doing, and they can act on it is also making it a difficult place for people to offend.
But diving in deeper, is there any kind of evaluation of both of those campaigns? Anything you can tell us?
Sure.
You said something about stakeholders. Is that just anecdotal, or do you have...
So we sent, hopefully you've received it, we've sent the evaluation campaign research that was undertaken in November. That has gone to the committee. I don't know if it's been shared with you, but I can follow up and make sure you have received it. And that gives you the stats, and there has been positive movement. I mean, these two campaigns are relatively new in terms of only going live in October, but already they're showing small movements in people who are saying that they would intervene, that they recognise the campaign, that they feel TfL and the police are doing a good job in dealing with that. And so we are seeing movement already, which is really, really promising. But I'll make sure, Assembly Member Best, that you have that.
And was there any more you wanted to say about the bystander awareness training?
Are you referring to the protection approaches?
The online training?
Yeah, that's something, I mean, that's really important. It's something that we offer over and above the bystander communications that we're all doing. What we don't want is to rely that all of customers need to have, participated in training before they can do anything. There'll be people who will feel more confident having training, and we'll do what we can to, get as many people into that training. Or there's lots of online training. Susie Lamp, Blue Trust do online training that we can promote as well. But the campaigns are important in the moment, safe ways to intervene. But that's, protection approaches. It's great training that we offer out, and it's a partnership with Mopac as well.
Because it's 3 hours long, right? Online. And I think maybe something that we were beginning to touch on last time is that's quite a long, and you have to be time to give, and you have to be quite into it. But also, is there perhaps something between seeing the campaign and being more invested and wanting to read more to committing to a 3-hour training? Is there like a middle point between that, or is that something that you could look at?
You're absolutely right. There probably is. So we have focused more on doing something across mass public transport and making it easy for people. But the training gives confidence, right? And if you aren't intervening all the time, I do think people are worried. But there's probably something we can do and share some of the content on our own website and ways to do that. We don't just rely on big campaigns in terms of videos and posters. There are a lot of things that we do through editorial, in the Stylist magazines and things like that. We're able to expand on it and give people more information. And that probably is an area, Assemblymember Best, that we can do a bit more on in terms of the middle ground.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Assemblymember Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a sort of a broad brush one, which I think most people are going to have some form of view on, I hope. It's regarding Project Guardian. So is Project Guardian effectively shifting attitudes among young people? And how will TfL and policing partners evaluate whether this translates into behavioural change over the long term?
Sorry, still got my microphone on. So you're referring to Project Guardian school sessions?
Yep.
Yes. So we're at the moment working through how we can evaluate those in a more structured way. Project Guardian school sessions, I think, were introduced when we did Project Guardian as the umbrella operation name for the work that we were doing to proactively, and we've kept that. And that's where we fund London Transport Museum to go into schools. So you've got trained educators going into to schools. They go in to visit Year 9 students, boys and girls, going there and talking to them. And I think it's complementary to the curriculum now that covers some of these issues anyway. The feedback from students, my daughter recently did it at her school, is excellent, and from teachers. But we want to see, we don't have what you're suggesting there, is that we track that through, and then in terms of how that then impacts on behaviour. It's more, the evaluation we currently do today is about how they took those messages, the recall of those messages, but we're not tracking that through to behaviour at the time. In terms of those Project Guardian school sessions, we've expanded it. We're aiming to reach at least 28,000 students a year. I think we did 35,000. I can come back to the committee and confirm that this academic year. But we use police intelligence as well. So where the crime reports may be suggesting that school children are either the victims or the perpetrators of some of these, we can then target Project Guardian to go into schools in that area. But the feedback has been really positive in terms of that. And we often go in with the police as well. So if it is linked to police data of where we go, we'll often have trained BTP or MPS people to come in with us who are trained in education sessions, and they'll come in with us, and then they can take crime reports from the children if there is any, but also give their perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I think one of the key points of Project Guardian is the early intervention and the early police sharing of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. If we get into the school children, the Year 9s particularly early, it really gets that message sent home at the earliest possible time. And obviously, from personal experience, that's the time when these children are starting to use the transport network by themselves, or a little bit later on with parents, and they're starting to see things through a different lens. So I think it's really important that the Safer Transport teams work with TfL and MO8 work with TfL to really share that message out there as well, and be able to do that. With regards to your question as to how do we monitor or how do we identify what the behavioural change is, well, that takes time, and it's going to be something that we'll have to monitor for a period of time and try and identify long-term successes in that space as well, both in victimology as well as and also identifying what becomes into a suspect profile as whether people have been involved in that as well. So yeah, it's a challenge.
Okay, thank you. Any others?
Just really briefly around the generally the bystander and the campaigns and the training, and it is anecdote, and there's definitely something to do around evaluating the benefits of it. But we every single day, and it's back to Assemblymember Cooper's question around that rapid review of incidents. So every single day, every sexual offence is reviewed in our chief officer meeting. So there's a daily management meeting at BTP where we review all of the incidents. So every sexual offence, and it is a very common thing now that pretty much every day there will be a bystander report in there, at least one, for a sex offence where the victim hasn't reported it. So somebody has reported it. Either a member of staff has said somebody else intervened, or they intervened, or that bystander themselves has contacted us to say they intervened, and they're offering their support if there is an investigation to come, or if the victim comes forward. So it's just that general theme. It is anecdotal, but we've definitely, as we've ramped up those campaigns, seen more and more of those reports on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you. Just back to Mandy. Because often with initiatives of this type, the initial approach, the feedback at the time is very positive, but then a couple of years pass and the messages fade. Is there any intention at some point to do some perhaps randomised dip testing from people who've attended the Project Guardian training, just to see whether the messages are still resonating maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, for example?
Yeah, Assemblymember Roberts says it's a good suggestion. I think that is what the team is looking at the moment. I can come back to the committee about how we're proposing to do more evaluation of Project Guardian. But we have had expertise from the VORG sector. Look at the content of that and make sure it's complementary to other sessions they may be having in school around consent. And what we're doing is we're adding on that. So what we're doing is complementing the messages that we give out in the campaigns, that this isn't tolerated on public transport, and this is what you can do about it if you're a victim of it or if you witness it. So it's a lot about reporting and then giving them some awareness of all the things that we're doing on buses and on tubes and trains. But absolutely, we'll come back to you on whether we can dip sample or then just work through how it is. But it's complementary to other information they should be receiving at school as well.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assemblymember Desai. We're on question 14.
Sorry, thank you. What insights from the bus shelter CCTV trial will be used to shape decisions about future deployment, and how soon could such experiences, such expansion, realistically take place?
So I'm happy to take that because we're working with another part of the Met on that. So the CCTV trial originally went into 20 locations, and this is a good thing and a bad thing in terms of the evaluation, but thankfully there haven't been incidents at those bus shelters. We don't have hotspots of crime at bus stops. So it hasn't been used that well in terms of the investigation. So the 20 locations we've that we've done research are telling us around 80%, and I think this information has been shared with the committee as well, 80% of women are feeling more confident knowing that there is CCTV in the bus shelters. What we're now doing, though, so we can really test the benefits in terms of that CCTV, and that's excellent in terms of crime investigation, is we're expanding that trial into a smaller number of locations in high crime areas, so not high bus-related crime areas, but just generally where the Met are working to see if it's useful, both in terms of investigation of non-transport crime and also in supporting and investigating crimes linked to the bus network itself. And so we're in the process of doing that at the moment, but the research is showing it's really positive and it's making a difference in terms of confidence to travel. So in parallel to doing the proper evaluation against what we set out to do in terms of the trial, we are also starting to think about how we can, sorry, can you hear me? In terms of how can we integrate it in our plans for bus shelters going forward. So that work is underway now.
So did you say you started off with 20?
20.
And and in terms of expansion?
We're looking to expand it to another 10 locations into higher crime areas where the Met are doing some work on more serious violence and see what we can do there. And then in parallel, we're looking at how we can expand on that into other locations.
Because it's so important for us, you could keep the committee updated.
Yes, absolutely.
And just one thing I want to say from my own experiences, I think there is a correlation between ASB and crime at bus stops, which are very near fast food joints. I mean, I'm just going by my experience as a resident in East London, and I shouldn't name the fast food chain, but bus stops around particular fast food stops, establishments. But yeah, just moving on to my second question. In the Mayor's Police and Crime Plan 2025 to 29, he committed to establishing a transport hate crime and a violence against women and girls task force to strengthen coordination between TfL, the police and community partners. What role will the Mayor's hate crime and task force play in tackling hate crime and violence against women and girls on public transport, and how will it deliver real change? And if I could start off with you again.
Yes, sure. I think we touched on this at the beginning of the meeting. So the task force, it first met on the 6th of October, and it's bringing together TfL, many of us on the panel today, transport operators, but then also from accessibility stakeholders and then the VORG sector, and bring that expertise. And the intention is that they will represent the views of their community. They'll act as a critical friend to all of us. They'll bring insight in terms of the issues that their community groups are experiencing, and also help with evidence in terms of what works, what's working already, what's working in other non-transport settings that we can learn from. And the intention is that they will co-design some sustainable solutions with us in terms of a new, refreshed violence against women and girls and hate crime plan for the transport network.
Moving to BTP.
Just, I won't repeat what kind of Mandy said, but I think the point is really around looking at kind of what works in terms of evidence across all partners, but equally what gaps there are in terms of between which we can fill between data, which is probably wider than just kind of police data, and how we support that. So I think it's just looking at what works well in terms of evidence, and then working with our partners to address those gaps. So there's lots of opportunities, but obviously we're early stages in terms of meetings, being the first one in October.
Thank you, Solomon. But I think one of the main benefits of the task force is that shared picture of all of our people on the panel, and the Assembly member Garbutt earlier on talking about those with particular characteristics, being in that room and hearing the powerful testimony of the groups and the views and the needs and requirements of those groups was really powerful in the session that I attended. Going forward, it's certainly a forum for us to explore what we do well and where in areas that we need to improve in as well. So I think it's a really powerful forum, and I'm really pleased to be part of it.
And if I could ask you for your observation, Sanjay.
Yeah. Thank
Status
you.
of the City of London being outside the Mayor's remit.
Yes, and we are part of that response.
I was going to ask you that,
absolutely, because this is a London issue. It's not a Met issue or TfL. So it's absolutely important that City of London Police forms part of the membership of that task force and works to achieve the objectives as well. Colleagues have already reflected on some of the benefits that we seek to achieve through that sharing of intelligence and data. But it also, from my perspective as well, means that members of the public can have greater levels of confidence, because there is a consistent approach across policing, across TfL, that doesn't kind of stop when they cross the border, because actually that's irrelevant to them. What they need to know is that they are responded to. So it gives both that level of confidence to the public, but I also think there's the benefit of having that, I'll call it that street level data as well, that helps to inform the picture, because in order to get to the transport hubs or on those transport routes, people will be coming through the roadways. So again, it's a way of blending and complementing the intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, criminals certainly don't recognize boundaries, so
No,
we should as well in terms of joined up working. And also, given the nature of the city, with your many bars, establishments, and particularly, I saw figures a few days ago about Liverpool Street being the busiest station, certainly in London. So I'm glad that you're part of the team. It's just one final point, Chair. When I commended BTP on their postal campaign, I should also acknowledge the work and role of TfL. So apologies. So well done again to you.
Thank you very much. We have a very quick question from Assembly Member Garbutt, and if we are actually on time, so don't ruin it.
Great work, team. Something that a guest mentioned at the previous meeting was being positive about the Vision Zero approach and wanting to see a similar effort across as a partnership with a clear action plan for violence against women and girls on public transport. And I just wondered if that's something that's been considered. Is that something the task force is looking at? Yeah, just that as a framework.
I think we are taking a similar approach. So when we first started doing Project Guardian, it was very much a police-led enforcement initiative with some comms wrapped around it. But it's not anymore. It's a whole organisation, holistic approach to it. So the task force will definitely work alongside us to develop a new plan for how we tackle VOG and also hate crime. We are doing work with the rail industry at the moment through the Rail Delivery Group, BTP rail operators, to develop a national rail VOG strategy that TfL is very much part of. And what we will do in TfL, as we have done with previous campaigns, is we will take that and we'll adapt that so it works for us in London and covers all modes of transport. But I think when Sharon was here, she mentioned, we very much take direction as well from the Mayor's Violence Against Women and Girls strategy. TfL has a strategy, and we have a programme in place at the moment for tackling violence against women and girls. And it isn't just police, it builds on top of the work that we're talking about today. But it's training, it's our public realm group, it's how we can incorporate process in terms of how we design space, how we manage space. But I think TfL, we've had an evolution in terms of how we approach this issue. As I said, moving from a police-led approach to something that's now pan-TfL. We cannot deliver on the targets that 80% of journeys will be by active travel modes if women and girls and other marginalised communities don't feel safe to do so. So I think all of us are now trying to work out how do we do that, and then we're taking that into different areas of TfL and then working through. So we will have a plan for hate crime and VOG that will be all holistic, more encompassing.
Do you know when that will, when you're planning on kind of consulting or going out or finalising that plan?
I'm not sure what the intention is. This is one of the for the task force. At the end of all of the task force meetings, we hope to have, or expecting to have, a revised plan that we will then be able to share more widely. But that doesn't stop the work now. We already have a plan in process that we're working through.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're now at the end of our questioning. Thank you very much, panel, for your very good answers. It absolutely informs the investigation that is taking place and the report that we will be writing. It's an investigation that I've been absolutely, really interested in, and the answers that we've had across the three panels who've attended. I would like to thank you all for attending this morning. I have a very brief apology to make to Chief Superintendent Sanjay Anderson. I miscalled you earlier and referred to you as Superintendent Anderson. You're not. You are Chief Superintendent Anderson. Thank you very much for attending. We are now going to... can I ask the committee to note the report and the discussion? Can we also delegate the authority to me as chair in consultation with party group lead members to agree any output arising from this meeting? Agreed. We will now adjourn for 10 minutes before moving on to the question and answer session with the Mayor. Thank you very much. need to make this phone We now move on to our second substantive item of business, and I'd like to welcome our guests, Kaya Comer-Schwartz, Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime, and Kenny Bowie, Director of Strategy and MPS Oversight at MOPAC. I'll start with, well, first of all, welcome, and good to see you. So I'll start with the first question.
Chair, sorry, may I ask that just before we start, I'd like to put on record my thanks to the Metropolitan Police Service in their work this week to engage and reassure the Jewish community on the back of the horrific terrorist attack in Bondi Beach in Sydney. It's been obviously a very tough week for the whole community, and I know that I've been really welcoming how proactive the police and CST have been to make sure that the Hanukkah events that are going across London this week can go ahead safely.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And at the very beginning of this committee meeting, we did acknowledge what had happened and the terrible, terrible events at Bondi Beach and the impact and ripples on the community, both London, nationally and across the world. But thank you very much for making that timely statement about the Metropolitan Police's engagement. So if we could move on to the questions. To what extent is the prevalence of sexually motivated crimes against women in... Sorry, I should have said right at the beginning that this first section is going to be about the Angelini inquiry, part 2. And my first question is, to what extent is the prevalence of sexually motivated crimes against women in public spaces known and understood in London?
Thank you, Chair. The best data we have comes from MOPAC's Public Attitude Survey, and it found that around 10% of Londoners have experienced unwanted sexual attention in the last 12 months, whilst 5% said they had experienced unwanted sexual attention. The prevalence of the unwanted attention has remained stable since 2023-24, but it's important to note that the LGBTQ+ community and younger Londoners continue to be at most risk.
Thank you. Mr. Bowe, did you want to add anything to that?
So I would just say it's notoriously underreported, all of these issues. We are seeing reporting into the Metropolitan Police increase, which is a positive thing, both in terms of victims having confidence to come forward, but also in terms of allowing the Metropolitan Police to increase their intelligence picture and understand where more of these offences are happening and be able to patrol proactively in such areas. I think it's always going to be, at least for the time being, a partial picture, and there is work done around Safer Streets and other work to allow people to self-report where people don't feel safe, and for councils and others therefore to be able to take action to increase those feelings of safety. And we know from the Public Attitude Survey about around 1% of Londoners, particularly prevalent though more amongst young female Londoners, have actually had experience in the last 12 months of sexual contact, not just the 10% of non-sexual attention and the 5% who have sexual attention, but actually a full 1% who are saying that there's sexual contact, unwanted sexual contact made with them. So in terms of how well understood is it, I would say it's a improving picture, but it is not as good as us, the Met, or anybody would want it to be, because these are underreported crimes as a whole.
Thank you. Would you mind moving your mic a bit closer to you, please? Thank you very much. Interestingly, we've just, as you're probably aware, we've just finished the investigation into violence against women and girls and hate crime on public transport. And this is quite a pertinent question, also I think relating to the issues that we've just discussed. So are Met officers and staff fully equipped to recognise and respond to sexual violence in public spaces? And with regard to your answers, could you provide the evidence for your answer, please? Deputy Mayor.
Well, we know that the Met has been on a journey in terms of all VAUG offences. This was something that was recognised in the Engage process, and the Met have been strident in making sure that public protection rapidly improves, and we've seen the investigation of sexual offences go up this year by 118%, and that's led to an increase of sexual offences being solved. So that's positive, but overall we know that rape offences are up 11.6% and other sexual offences are up 8.7%. So we recognise the huge amount of work that remains to be done. The Metropolitan Police Service has put in additional training on public protection and continues to make sure that they audit on things like appropriate language is something as well that they've really driven through their vetting and misconduct process. But I know that with the scale of work that's needed to be done and the increasing pressures, that it's something that we need to be ever vigilant of.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything?
I just add that there's quite a lot of work which is being done in the tech-enabled space, because obviously that is a new and developing threat to women and girls. And over the last few years, the Met has trained, I think it's roughly 250 digital media investigators to look at that. So that's an example of something concrete which they are doing to allow them, if you treat the public space as also being online, something which they're doing actively in there. And then they have other specific operations to look for people, like in terms of supporting sex workers. You have Operation Ephedra, which is looking at persistent loitering, curb crawling and getting intelligence and sort of pimps and controllers, as well as arresting the males who are soliciting the vulnerable sex workers. So there is concrete work going in that space. There's all the there's obviously Operation Vigilant as well, which is where you have plainclothes police officers who go into premises and are able to look and observe and recognise some of the activity which is taking place in a public space there, and where they're able to, I think that was actually highlighted by Ailish Angelini as an example of good practice. And within the Metropolitan Police, that is complemented by having uniformed officers. I think that's called Operation Verona, where they actually do that as the sort of deterrence effect of having the uniformed officers there, and that is designed to complement Operation Vigilant in that respect.
Thank you. Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor. The number of police officers will shrink by 5% by the end of this financial year. The Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, has noted that the demand for police services is increasing 5% each year. Are there enough officers to respond to sexual violence in public spaces?
I think that we've been clear throughout the budget process, and the Mayor was clear in the allocation of the additional £32 million that we got last year, that public protection remains the priority, and also that we must uplift the neighbourhood policing offer to make sure that we have additional eyes on that. I would say also it's really important that we recognise that and this is key to the Angelini report, the need for partnerships in this space, so that we're working with business, local authorities, TfL, public design, to make sure we're doing all we can together to make sure that women feel safe and are safe in our city.
Yeah, but we know women don't feel safe and are not safe in our city. I mean, is the Mayor still committed to growing the organisation by 1,300 officers? Or have you given up on that manifesto pledge?
No, we have not given up on that manifesto pledge. We've already been able to release 500 officers into neighbourhood teams this year. We continue to monitor that, and we want to get to the point where we've released over 500 officers by the end of the financial year. So we're working very closely with the Met to make sure that we can reach that target.
Yet moving them around doesn't mean that there's more, does it? I mean, it's absolute nonsense about him getting the extra officers. For the Mayor to meet his manifesto commitment, he would need to start recruiting 4,000 officers yearly, for which there is insufficient capacity for training schools, vetting for new officers and money. And they just haven't got the capacity to do it. So why don't you say here and now that the pledge has been abandoned?
No, because the pledge hasn't been abandoned. Sorry,
so
we are talking about the Angelini report, and we're actually straying into a different area here. Well, could you target your questioning and emphasise the issues that we're discussing, please?
In order to fulfil the Angelini report's recommendations, we need police officers. And my point is the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor won't come to terms with the fact that they're promising officers that they haven't got the capacity or the money to actually train. So we need to start talking proper figures here. Whatever anybody suggests we do, at the end of the day, we're going to need police officers. And to say we're going to get them when we just haven't got the capacity to get them in. I don't know why you won't admit to that.
Because we are releasing more officers into neighbourhoods. As I said, we've already released 500. We're working to release another 500.
Somewhere else.
Recruitment hasn't stopped.
You need more
Sorry, you're asking me a question. I would like to respond. We're continuing with recruitment because obviously the organisation is shrinking, but we're managing that through natural attrition. And back to the topic, it's really important that those officers that we are releasing back into our community know that public protection is a priority. Only a couple of weeks ago was I in Lewisham hearing from young female officers about the work that they have been doing to tackle vulgar offences in the community. So it's clearly a priority for the Metropolitan Police Service, and working closely in our prioritisation around neighbourhood officers, we're delivering on it.
The Met is continuing to lose staff, and over the next 4 months, plans of recruiting 191 officers while losing 200 officers a month. I know people that work within the system, and they are all saying the same. There isn't the capacity to get more police officers in place. Maybe you go talk to them. I'll leave it at that, Chair, because you don't want me asking about police numbers. At the end of the day, it's bobbies on the beat that make the difference, and we all know that.
Assemblymember Hall, I couldn't agree with you more. It is bobbies on the beat that matter. We hear that really loudly from Londoners, and that's why we prioritise neighbourhood policing. And we're making sure that the training is in line with that, as well as the recruitment.
You're taking them from other places so that other places are losing officers.
And with that comes additional expertise and specialisms.
Thank you. Assemblymember Garbett.
Thank you. My questions are about how MOPAC and therefore the Met are doing more to make the police a genuinely anti-misogynistic organisation, because we know that that is important for the way that women are treated, but also a lot of focus is on kind of trust, but it's how we kind of genuinely rebuild how people are treated. Because the Angelini report talks about how some forces have made commitments to being anti-discriminatory, but not specifically kind of anti-sexist and anti-misogynistic. And I know that the Met in their, the MOPAC and your recent kind of violence against women and girls plans have made the Met want to focus on sexism and misogyny. But I just wonder what more can be done, what that actually looks like, and how we become a genuinely anti-misogynistic force.
Thank you. What I'd first like to say is I think, given the Casey review came out really strongly and recognising misogyny within the police force as a key cultural issue, it's something that we have made sure that we've embedded in our oversight. I would say that not only is it something that we continue to ensure is picked up in misconduct hearings and the vetting process, as well as training. And Metropolitan Police earlier this year released their VOG action plan. And obviously we worked closely with them in the development of that, and we will be holding them to account with that. I think it's really important that through New Met for London 2, that there's a clear prioritisation of culture, and within that being an inclusive force for everyone, and we must continue to hold them to account for that. We did a deep dive into the firearms culture, because that was something that particularly came out in the Casey review, and there's an area where they have actively put in measures to ensure that women are more included within that specialist branch, and some of the things that they've been doing in that space, we've pushed for them to replicate moreover across the Metropolitan Police Service.
And is there anything from Angelina that you think changes or could enhance what the VOG action plan, the Met's VOG action plan talks about, in light of specifically some of the culture and how they treat women?
I would say that on two things. I mean, I think the data is important, and I think we might be coming on to that. So we need to continue to make sure that, although it's linked to the national data set, that they continue with the enhancement and tracking of that. I think it's great that they have specialist operations like the V100, which is moving forward how they tackle sexual offences. But as you say, on culture, it's important, it's embedded in every element of what they're doing, from recruitment to retention, making sure that both officers inside the force and Londoners feel that they're getting the service they deserve, and we must continue to monitor that. We've only just seen in the Panorama documentary how important making sure that victims are believed and victims are supported to start their journey, perhaps through the criminal justice system, is really important. It's something that is also recognised in the victims' attrition. The Victims Commissioner's attrition report recently is how officers respond in terms of the outcomes of the really focuses on whether women will continue on their journey. So it's exceptionally important.
Absolutely, I was going to mention that. Obviously, up to 69% of adult rape victims withdrawing from the criminal justice process. And just related to this, so in context of Angelini and of Casey that you've mentioned, obviously the Mayor's formally announced the 2-year-on review finally. And if that finds that misogyny is still kind of rampant within the Met, what action would you see as appropriate?
I mean, I think that's difficult. I don't want to presume a hypothesis that doesn't exist. Obviously, we've just had Engage that looked at some of these things and found improvement in a lot of areas in this in public protection, but also continued to push them to go further. So it's really great that we've got Dr. Gillian Fairfield on board, and I'm sure that we'll be, once the review comes forward, looking at it really seriously.
That's a good reassurance, because it's great that that's happening. I know that's been called for by a number of groups, and it's just really I'm just concerned that maybe it won't show us the progress that we need, but we can address that when we see the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assembly Member Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Deputy Mayor. Good morning, Kenny. Good to see you both. I was just asking, in fact, the previous panel, which was quite large and included people from the Met, British Transport Police and Transport for London, about working together. And I think it's one of the really important ways in which, talking about how the staff from different agencies can work together on a specific issue. And in this case, preventing sexually motivated crimes in public spaces. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts about what is working well in terms of the link up between the Met, BTP, bus companies, TfL, City of London Police, who are all here this morning, and also where you think any further improvements could be made to improve that sort of joint working to hopefully stop this kind of offence, but certainly take action if one is taking place.
Thank you. I mean, I think, first of all, I would say is the prioritisation and alignment on VOG, moreover, is really positive across the partnership. There's lots of great initiatives that is really working across London to make sure in public spaces that women are protected. That includes the delivery of the welfare and vulnerability engagement, which works with customer-facing businesses to make sure they have the training they need to give them the confidence to tackle incidents of sexual violence in the community. Also, we've been working with the Susie Lampard Trust to help employees be upstanders so that they can tackle issues and stand by victims when problems happen, as well as I'm sure in your own area you will have come across the Safe Havens initiative that enables women to know if there's a local business that they can go into, as well as working the Night Safety Charter, which has worked with over 34,000 businesses to make sure that our nighttime economy is working to be safe for women. And that's, I'm sure TfL have talked to you this morning about the audits that they've been doing in public spaces alongside local authorities, training up women to be able to do those audits, but also their ongoing ambitions to make sure that both on the network and in their public spaces that women feel safe. And that's why I would say we're ambitious about it already, but our newly refreshed VOG strategy that will be coming out early next year pushes us to go even further in this joint-up preventative approach. We really believe that tackling VOG is everybody's business, and a key strand of that, which mirrors the work of the Angelina report, is that prevention space. So I would say that it's great that we've got that alignment. We need to draw in all of the partners across London that we can to go even further and make sure that it's clear that we will not stand for VOG in London.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything to what the Deputy Mayor has just said, Kenny?
Always happy to. All I would say is I think the final part of your question was what would we like to see more or what would they like to do better. And I think what I would say in this, I would go right back to the very first question, which was you have three forces, all of which will be recording the reporting and their intelligence on their own systems. And actually, whilst things have improved in terms of the pooling of intelligence and people understanding things more, I would always say that there's more that can be done in that space for it to be sharper and for people to understand. Because if BTP, I'm trying to think of somewhere, Vauxhall, for example, where people come out of the tubes but maybe get onto the bus networks, etc., actually a proper understanding and proper join up there would be a really good thing. As I say, I do think it's better. And then I would echo what the Deputy Mayor said around how they all work in terms of prevention and equally how that flows through into then enforcement. Because if you actually think about intelligence being shared, and some of the Met's really successful initiatives around like the V100 or things like that, actually these people, if it's BTP or if it's COLP, whoever have this intelligence, these people, they will have intelligence on people who are operating and preying on vulnerable women in London. And the more that can be given to the Met so that they can target these highest harm offenders and get them off the streets, the better that would be for everybody, I think.
Yeah, I think being able to monitor people who are regular offenders is really important. You just mentioned the interchange situation like Vauxhall, which obviously is complicated, and you've got a tube station with multiple entrances, exits. You've also got the overground, and you've also then got multiple buses all right next to each other. That's the same in Wimbledon, where you've got the tram, the overground, the underground of buses. But we've also got the situation that happens at the end of the line as well. And I have Morden in my constituency, and as well as Wimbledon, which is obviously also a terminus station. One of the things that's been said to me is that when people turn up at the sort of the end of the line situation, that is also quite difficult for them, particularly women. And I was struck by one of the last comments from TfL in the session earlier, where they were talking about if we are to really encourage people into active travel, and the Mayor's transport strategy says 80% of journeys should be active travel or public transport, we need to make it really safe for women and girls to feel that they can do that. And people have quite often, there's one argument that says, well, therefore you ought to have a car park next to a station so people can jump in a car. And obviously there are issues about that, which I'm not going to go into. But also people have said, we need to have line bikes or forest bikes or you know, whatever bikes right next to the station so that I can then jump on a bike and get back to my house, and then quite often park it on the pavement right outside their house. And I do notice that that is something that's happening. So what more can we do to give people confidence in these journeys, which are very rarely using just one mode of transport? Either what can we do to help at those interchanges, but also at those terminuses?
I would, first of all, I would really point to the work that has been done with women in this space. So one of the research projects that I saw, which we know as women, is how differently women take journeys to men. So men, the research showed that men take more kind of direct journeys. They'll go from home to work, whereas women may take more shorter journeys. For example, you might be dropping off your kid at nursery, picking up something from the shop before you go to work. So the additional way in which caring responsibilities or other things affect journeys is really important to understand, and that's why we're working closely with TfL through their work in the audits, that we're making sure we're listening to women and we're designing the work. We had this year to have the International Vogue Summit was really pulling on international intelligence about how cities who are starting to build huge infrastructure schemes, especially on transport, are starting from a space of designing them with women in mind. And TfL, likewise, you know, we can't go back to the Victorian times and do that, but where we're going forward, how can we ensure that Vogue issues, but also how women travel, are embedded in those new designs?
Yeah, I think that's really important, and obviously a lot of our system is up to 150 years old. Anything that's newly constructed, we obviously want to see the highest quality, but obviously as we refresh, it would presumably be something that MOPAC would be calling to be included in those kind of designs.
Yeah, that's why our new Vogue strategy, we've really pushed, and I'm excited to come back when it's published to talk more about it, but that's why we've really pushed it. It's not MOPAC's strategy, it's the Mayor's Vogue strategy, and across the mayoral family and beyond, we all need to hold the responsibilities of tackling Vogue.
Yeah, I think the theme of better coordination between the different parts hopefully will be enshrined in that new strategy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, how is MOPAC working with the Met to improve data on patterns of sexual offending, motivations for behavioural change, and what will stop them?
Thank you. In line with the Lady Angelini's finding, we know that there were systematic national failures collected on collection of reliable data, as Kenny mentioned earlier, especially for sexually motivated crimes in public spaces. So the work that we're doing with the Met has called for enhanced tracking and monitoring of those crimes, as well as making sure that the other intelligence points that I mentioned earlier through the public attitude surveys, also our own Vogue board, and the Met's IAG are also making sure that we're getting a clearer picture. As Kenny mentioned, we know that a lot of women don't report it for various reasons, and we need to make sure that we continue to give them the confidence to do that, making sure that in terms of the culture of the Met, that they're continuing to demonstrate that these are issues that they will take up and care about, but also, you know, the work that we're doing with TfL, making sure, like campaigns that we've seen on tubes and buses, ensuring that there's easy reporting channels for women to report.
Yep, that's a good thing. Are we now collecting ethnicities of the perpetrators, as well as their age groups, immigration status, all that sort of thing? Are we actually doing proper collection now?
There has been challenges because of the new Connect system, particularly, I believe, on ethnicity and is it age? But it is something that we're very aware of and that we're pushing forward.
So immigration status doesn't always get picked up when you pick somebody, but yes, officer-defined ethnicity, age, all of those things should be entered onto the Connect system, and that should be being picked up more and more as something that we have addressed with the Met in the last 3 or 4 months, because the data quality and the data itself was just missing, and the Met are taking steps to try and rectify that.
Yeah, I mean, 4 months, this should have been, 4 months is not that long, and I don't understand why it wasn't collected earlier. And you're saying it's a problem with the new system, so you're saying there are still holes in this?
We're saying we recognise that there are problems and we're pushing the Met to address them, yes.
Well, what percentage then of people's ethnicity, as an example, is not being picked up?
So it was roughly a third of self-defined ethnicity wasn't being picked up, and the reason is that the move from CRIS to Connect has meant that it's a drop down, which I think is now optional rather than a mandatory field, and before they can actually move on.
It's optional now, or it's mandatory? It's not mandatory to write it down.
So it is in the guidance, but the way that the system works means that there isn't a block, as I understand it, before you can move on to the next stage.
Right. So a 33% then is missing. Are you saying now, I'm not quite clear, are you saying it is working now, or it's still not working? Because if it's still not working, I'd like to know how the Mayor assumes that, as an example, there are no specific ethnicity involved in rape gangs and everything else. If this system isn't working, how can he make any of these claims? So exactly where we are now.
So I can't give you an exact where we are at this very moment. I can say that when Connect came in, which was about, 18 months ago, now this was something we've looked at this. We have spoken to the Met. It is working in terms of that you can put it in. It's just that officers haven't been putting that in. Historically, where it was CRIS, this should have been a mandatory field, which did prevent you from going on. So there shouldn't have been an issue around the ethnicity data collection historically.
So do police officers know now it is mandatory to put it in? Or are you actually saying to me it isn't mandatory because the system doesn't say so?
Well, I'm saying, I think I'm saying both of those things to you, which is...
But that doesn't make sense.
Well, it does, if you let me explain.
We really do need ethnicity captured on sexual offences.
I agree, and especially when you look at the victimisation tends to happen more disproportionately, again, to black women and girls. I agree with that, and again, I'm sure I can send you the data that we have on all of this, and I will come back to you about where they are on the self-defense ethnicity and
Yeah, the problem is, Kenny, you can send me the data. You've just told me that at least a third of it isn't correct.
No, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. I'll come back to you in terms of whether there has been an improvement over the last month or so in terms of that gap that we've previously highlighted.
That is shocking. That is really shocking. Is there any attempt to go back and have a look at this? Because if you're looking at patterns of sexual offending, one of the issues at the moment is to actually start looking at ethnicity. You've only got to look at the rape gangs to see certain people are being
So there will always be, there will never be a 100% on this, because actually many people will report a crime and they won't know the ethnicity or even the suspected ethnicity of the suspected offender. If you think about tech-enabled VOG, or you think about something which has happened in a crowded place where somebody is perhaps touched in a sexual manner illegally, there will not be somebody that is attached with that. So there will always be a percentage of these cases, I'm afraid, Assembly Member Hall, where there isn't going to be.
But not to the degree that clearly that this hasn't been working. And the fact that it was only really picked up 4 months ago, I think it's absolutely atrocious. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member Roberts.
Thank you, and good morning. Oh, afternoon now, I suppose. Deputy Mayor, you mentioned that the refreshed Violence Against Women and Girls strategy will be published early next year. Can you be more specific?
We're hoping, we know that obviously the National VOG strategy is being released this week, so we wanted to make sure that that has been done so that we can we've been working obviously closely with government throughout the development, but we want to make sure that we're fully aligned in that. So we've held off the publication of ours to make sure that we can do those final checks. But I'm very hopeful it will be the start of the year.
Start of the year could be January, could be February, could be March. Can you be more specific?
I'm relatively confident that it will be January.
January. You'll appreciate our concern, given that we've been told many times that the estate strategy would come earlier this year, and then by summer, and then by the end of the year, and we're now having to force its.
I'll be clear that there was, as I said at the last PCC meeting, that it is going to be published this week, the estate strategy. It was always going to, as I said in the last PCC meeting, it was always going to be published by the end of the year.
Oh, no. I appreciate when it's going to be published now, but there's been many false dawns on the estate strategy.
I understand that there's a very long history on the estate strategy that's gone on for years, and I've addressed that a number of times in the committee in terms of making sure that it was in line with the Kerslake review, the New Met for London review, making sure that it's an affordable strategy. We've now, through my time, I have something that I know we picked up on the first PCC meeting, and it's something that I've really been pushing throughout the year to move forward on. And I'm as I said, it's going to be released this week. I'm confident that we're getting it.
No,
so.
I appreciate it's going to be released this week or this year.
Yep.
We've only got a couple of weeks left. But my concern is that the assurances that you're giving us now on the VORG strategy, not the estate strategy, on the refreshed VORG strategy that you said it will be published by January, is that a cast-iron commitment on your behalf?
Well, I mean, I don't want to, obviously I'm very conscious that, publication dates can change. As I said, we've got we're in the final stages on the VORG strategy. We want to obviously reflect now that the national strategy has come out and make sure that there's full alignment on that. But given that, we've been working with government and we're completely aligned in their ambitions around VORG, I don't see major changes needed, and we'll be there at the start of the new year.
Just for clarification, the strategy, the refreshed strategy, is going to take full account of the findings of the Angelini inquiry?
Yeah, we're definitely taking account of the Angelini inquiry.
Thank you. Well, we look forward to seeing the strategy, hopefully, in January.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Thank you. Assembly Member Hall, a quick question,
very,
please.
very quickly. Has the London Policing Board seen this strategy that's not quite finished yet? Don't look like that, Kenny. They saw the last lot that none of us knew anything about. So you're saying you don't think so. Can you absolutely confirm that you haven't given it to them before any of us have seen it?
Well, to address the VORG strategy, first of all, I know obviously that there are members of the London Policing Board who work with us on other boards, including the VORG board, so who have been part of the development of that, may have been part of the development of that through there. What I will say also is that we have consulted with the environmental team, the property team.
I'm actually asking if they've seen the strategy.
On the estate strategy, we've consulted with a lot of experts across the GLA family, and the LPB is appointed for their expertise to help the Mayor hold the Met to account. So that's why they have seen the estate strategy, and it's not the whole London Policing Board that have seen it. It's ones that have relevant expertise and have fed that in.
No, we're talking about that tomorrow. I actually asked you a question. I was just hoping for no, of course they haven't. Have the London Policing Board seen the violence against women, girls strategy?
No, they certainly haven't seen the final version because
but they've seen a version of it.
Well, I'm saying that the London Policing Board is made up of experts. Some of those experts particularly have VORG expertise and sit on other boards within MOPAC. So they've definitely fed into the work we've been doing.
Honestly.
Well, sorry,
anyway,
can I assist here? I think the question is, has the London Policing Board as constituted as that entity seen it?
No.
Thank you very much.
Right, there's just one, I want to be helpful here, Chair. 78% of self-defined ethnicity data, which apparently is more accurate, is missing, not 35%. There you are, Kenny, that's come off your something to do with the Met. 78% is missing. Thank you, Chair.
I wonder if we could pick up these issues around ethnicity data collection, because it clearly is an important element of policing work, and giving a much clearer picture of exactly what's happening. Thank you.
Chair, may I add that I think we as well, given the amount of commissioning work we do in this space, we also triangulate that with the data that we hold from those services, because that will give us a fuller picture.
Thank you for that clarification. What I'd like to do now is move on to the next section, which is about key issues in custody. Sorry, excuse me. The first questioner is Assembly Member Small-Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to associate myself with the comments made by the Deputy Mayor at the start regarding the Met's presence. I know many synagogues in my constituency have found that very reassuring since the weekend's horrific terrorist attacks in Sydney. Deputy Mayor, what action is MOPAC taking to address the way the Met governs and oversees the collection of accurate data in custody, including use of forced data?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
What action is MOPAC taking to address the way the Met governs and oversees the collection of accurate data in custody, including the use of forced data?
Thank you. So the Met has a custody dashboard. We publish a range of custody databases, including a total number of detainees going through custody and the total number of strip searches. We are aware since the launch of Connect that there are technical issues that have impacted on certain detainee databases, such as self-defined ethnicity and gender of detainees, as picked up previously. But we are aware of these issues, and although frustrated, we are pushing for them to be resolved effectively.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor, how are you and MOPAC working with the Met to ensure that excessive use of force isn't used in custody suites, as was evidenced in the recent BBC Panorama documentary at Charing Cross?
I'll start, but I know Kenny is keen to come in. I think that this is something that was also, we have to recognise, picked up by the HMIC report into custody as well. And the main way in which we are monitoring this is the work we do directly with the independent custody visitors. So we're making sure that 79% in the last quarter of all detainees were visited by the independent custody visitors, and this gives us both data and insight into the experience of detainees, especially in terms of safety and vulnerability and things like safeguarding around children.
Yeah, I would just add to that. So firstly, I just want to sort of pay tribute to the over 140 independent custody visitors that we do have, because they give up their own time to go and look at all of this. And when they do go in, they can look, as is currently constituted the scheme, they can look at the CCTV, they can see what's going on and a live thing. What they can't do at the moment is go back and look and review the actual use of force which has happened in custody. Now, we are currently working to set up a pilot from early next year which will allow that to happen. That requires some boring stuff around data sharing agreements and such like to be, and DPIAs and everything to be put in place. But if you think about what we saw with the autistic child in the Panorama programme and the potential use of force around all of that, I think this is a really important initiative in order to bring extra levels of scrutiny from the community itself around how use of force does actually happen behind closed doors in that way, because whilst the ICVs do a brilliant job, their primary role when they go in at the moment is to look after detainee welfare. And as the Deputy Mayor said, we do over 170 visits a month. They see over 750 detainees a month, and they do a brilliant job in that regard. But if we can set up this new pilot do have a proper look at the use of force and bring greater scrutiny to that, that should help sort of shine a light in an area where it probably hasn't been happening previously.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assembly Member Lord Bailey. Oh, no. Assembly Member Garbett, you wanted to come in there.
Yeah, thank you. It's just to follow up on a question that I raised with the Met Commissioner a few months ago about dip sampling of CCTV. I then followed it up with a question and got quite a long, slightly a response that wasn't that clear about whether that was happening. So I just wondered if post the panorama, because it didn't sound like it was happening before, if that's something that's taking place.
That's, I think, building on what Kenny just said about the pilot on reviewing CCTV. So when we are able to get that data sharing agreement into place, then we'll be able to do more audits in that regard.
Yeah, and one of the things which we have raised with the Met previously has been, and in fact this has been raised with us by our independent custody visitors, has been the lack of, I suppose, supervision or senior interference, if you want to call it that, within the custody suites themselves. And there are now going to be 3 unannounced visits a week from Met Det superintendents and chief inspectors going into custody suites. If you think there's 22, I think there's 10 people at that level in Met Det, which means you have 30 unannounced visits a week. They're building on some of the, and to make sure they're not just sort of tick box exercises, that is looking at some of the good work which has been done up in Greater Manchester Police. And I believe that as part of all of that work and the enhanced scrutiny, that there will be looks at some of the use of force stuff that you're talking about.
So that sounds really good. So the data sharing agreement is for the independent, but I think when I was raising this with the Met Commissioner, I did just expect senior people to be also doing that within the Met as well, not just...
No, that's right, and that's just what I was saying. I think that if I'm incorrect in what I've said there, I'll come back to you, but I'm fairly sure that what I've just said is right in terms of the senior people as they go in to do these visits, etc. will also...
Oh, they will also do that. OK, great. That's reassuring. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Assembly Member Lord Bailey.
Just quickly before I ask my question, on this violence against women and girls strategy, Deputy Mayor, you seem to suggest that members of the London board were participating in the formation of that strategy. Is that correct?
Assembly Member Lord Bailey, sorry, could we get back to what we discussed? I know you wanted to come in earlier. We're now on custody. Could you ask questions about that, please?
But Chair, I think it's
Assembly
material
Member Lord
to what's
Bailey,
going on.
please could you ask the questions that you've asked for?
Maybe we could have that in writing, like who's been...
Yeah, thank you.
Well, it should be on the record, because it sounds like people have been
well,
marking
if it's
their own
in
homework.
writing, it's on record. Can you please just stick to the script right now, please?
Oh my gosh. Okay, Deputy Mayor, how are you? In the 2025 inspection, HMICFSR found that there was limited support for frontline officers who had to deal with people with mental health conditions. What action has been taken to address this?
Thank you. I'm well, thank you for asking me how I am. Yes, this is something that we, through our independent custody visitors and panel meetings, we regularly discuss mental health support and care of detainees. The ICV has praised the expansion of the embedded healthcare provision within the Met custody estate and reported good coverage of custody healthcare. However, they also wanted to highlight concerns around access to appropriate adults and support for neurodivergent detainees. And it's something that, on the back of the ICVs raising this, that MOPAC has done a pilot piece of research on in the experience of neurodivergent detainees. They started that research in June, and we're looking at concluding it and bringing that publication forward in the new year. They also, the ICV also recognised that there's meant to be access to distraction items like fidget toys to help with people who have neurodivergence, and also exercise, and there's an issue of access and availability of those things. And they're also wanting further monitoring on the referral to liaison and diversion services, which is obviously key if there's vulnerabilities assessed. So some positives, but further to go. And I know we might come on to this later, but obviously the estate in terms of custody suites are also important in terms of mental health issues.
Can I just drill down on this thing about appropriate adults? Is it just not a high enough number of appropriate adults? Is that the challenge?
It's the ability, I think it's the initial assessment of who needs an appropriate adult or not. And so it's the ability to assess the vulnerability. Obviously, children is mandated across the board that they must have access to appropriate adults. But for adults, it's more of an assessment.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So that's more about vulnerable adults who need an appropriate adult rather than a child who needs an appropriate adult. Okay,
and where it's an unseen disability, where it's neurodivergence or mental health, as you were saying, Lord Bailey, those are the ones where it can be more difficult, understandably, in a busy custody suite to make that right assessment immediately and ensure that there is the appropriate adult available. But it still should be better.
I understand, because that's going to bring me to my next quick question about who and how are these assessments made, because they can be, they sound to me like they could almost need a specialist, particularly neurodivergence. You could be dealing with people who are unaware of their own neurodivergence, for instance.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, just to reassure you that every suite does have 24/7 healthcare, whether it's like nurses, paramedics or healthcare professionals, and ultimately they should be the ones, they are sort of trained to obviously look at that, and they should be the ones that are assessing that. Not every, it depends if you have a big block of people coming in at one time and you have one healthcare professional who's there, it's maybe not going to be that they get to people as quickly as you would like, but it is medically trained people, and I do think that's one of the things which has really improved in the Met over the last 3-4 years in terms of the provision of the healthcare professionals within the Met detention estate.
Okay, and facilities for disabled detainees are described as often very poor. What is being done to address this?
Yeah, we recognise that particularly, well, I'd say it's a mixed picture. Obviously, some of the estate offers step-free access. All of the custody suites have hearing loops, which is important, and access to sign language interpreters as well as Braille reading materials. But we recognise that not all custody suites are accessible, and this is something that we're addressing through the EQIA of the estate strategy.
So it's a strong line of work, because this would suggest it as a cost?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we're through the EQIA of the estate strategy, if we're looking to uplift the accessibility of custody suites, there will be capital costs attached. Yeah.
Okay, take to account. What progress has been made towards ensuring that every child in a custody suite sees a non-policing professional as set out in the Met's custody policy?
Yeah, this is, as I said, it's important that all children, and this is recognised in the Met's children's strategy, have access to an appropriate adult, that they are opt out on legal support, and that's something that is actively monitored, how many children are opting out, and if the appropriate adult assesses that that's not the correct choice, they can also go back and ask for legal support. But this is something that we're very clear needs to be continually monitored.
What proportion of children do opt out from legal support?
I don't have the figures. I mean, it's. I can come back.
It'd be great to let the committee know, just to see if because doing years of youth work, I've watched children make situations significantly worse for themselves by opting out, and it would be interesting to know if that still exists. Have all custody staff undergone child first training?
All 32,000 frontline officers have been through New Met for London training, which includes elements on child first, yes.
But this says custody staff. So
and staff, sorry.
Okay, to be very clear,
you're right to pull me up on it,
because it's a slightly different thing than a police officer, I would imagine. I just want to take one more go at this estate strategy, looking at uplift for accessibility. So it is a work strand. It will be covered in any rebuilds they do, but does it talk about retrofit? Because many custody suites are in a place they're not going to be rebuilt, but they may be retrofitted. It could be possible to retrofit them. Is that part of the conversation as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know that some custody suites do have accessible cells, which include things like lowered benches and cell systems that can help physically detain detainees, and that would be the standard that we want to uplift to. But we need to obviously assess through the capital programme the individual custody suites, because as you say, different custody suites are at different stages of their material life, and how much it would cost to do that.
So just to be clear, because it sounded like you said that in your new system you will try to develop all custody suites to a standard. You know, if you built a new custody suite now, it would be developed to a standard with accessibility, lower benches, etc. immediately. Okay.
Yeah, if we were building a new one, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be smart. I'm just trying to understand if it is in a policy, because you did seem to say that. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Chair.
Thank you. Assembly Member Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask about the ICVs. I think you've talked quite a bit about sort of how that programme works, what they do, the frequency of the visits, and so on. So that's very interesting. It sounds like a really good scheme. But what I'm keen to perhaps understand is that, despite that being in place, why were the issues at Charing Cross missed by that? And as a follow-up from that, are there lessons learnt that you can then use to make that scheme more effective, to obviously hope that similar instances either don't happen again, or if they do happen, they're picked up more proactively?
Yeah, it's a very fair question. I suppose what I would say is the ICV scheme isn't there to go in and look at the culture within the suite. It's there to go in and look after detainee welfare. That is their primary responsibility. That is the statutory reason that they exist. So they do go in and they do look at that. Now, they do feedback to us about elements, primarily, let's be honest, about welfare, about detainee welfare, as they should. They will feed back on occasion about, say, well, this doesn't happen, or we don't think we get great responses from this suite because they don't seem to be listening, and that can be like allow us to go and take a fresh look at things. What don't I think was being picked up at Charing Cross? Well, I think it's one of those, I think the Commissioner's talked about this, if you have to go through one door and then another door to get in there, are the people going to be on their best behaviour once you get through there? If there's somebody outside looking in, yes. Do I think that the lesson there is that they need more intrusive supervision and line management, and has the Met recognised that and is taking action? Yes. Do I think that it's clear that too many of those teams had been left there to create their own subcultures without any challenge? Yes, I think that's the sort of thing that you saw previously with Houghton back in the same Charing Cross station, if I'm honest with you, that was teams who were working nights, had been there for a long time based on overtime. So I do think, what did I take from the panorama thing about what could be done better, what more could be done? Well, I think that goes to some of the previous questions about the use of force. And can we extend that scheme to actually, which is what we're in the process of doing with DPIs and others, to actually look and dip sample some of those use of force incidents within the custody suite, and can that be done by the community, so that we're actually, because we find that's the way that more people have more confidence if it's members of their community that are telling them something's okay than if it's us telling them, quite frankly. So I think that's probably the next stage in terms of where we want to take this.
Helpful. Do they, as well as speaking to the detainees, do they also speak to the staff as well when they're on those visits?
Yeah, they will, but the primary role when they go in will be to go in and speak to the detainees, see what's been happening, like have they been offered a shower very often, if they're there, have they been offered it outside space, exercise yard, do they understand that if they use the toilet in the cell, for example, it's not on CCTV and it's blocked out, like have they had their food, etc. So it really is making, have they been visited by or had access to appropriate adults? So it really is making sure that the detainee welfare, obviously for some of they will speak to custody sergeants, so they will speak to the staff, and that's where they will pick up some of the stuff. And sometimes we do get reports which praise particular members of the staff, the DDOs, the sergeants, and say this looks good. Other times we get stuff saying that they don't find things to be very responsive, and that's the sort of stuff that we then take up at more senior levels, people in Met Det.
question. How are the ICVs recruited in the first place?
There's an open recruitment. I can send you the link to how it's done, etc. if you're interested in all of that.
But I just would like to add that we're actively recruiting. We're asking for more people with disability backgrounds to come forward as expertise in this field, recognising the challenges there.
Thank you. Assembly Member Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Just specifically relating to the ICVs who've been into Charing Cross over the last, say, 18 months, have we conducted any form of exercise to speak to each of them to find out what their thoughts were? And have we also done a deep dive into each and every one of the reports which they submitted in case any of these sort of troubling behaviours were identified and we missed them?
Yes and yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assembly Member Desai.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. What progress has been made towards setting up a use of force scrutiny panel for ICVs to strengthen oversight following the BBC Panorama documentary?
If I may, I think this is something that through the work we're doing in the Met, obviously that's within the custody suites, and Kenny has spoken about that and how we're getting high scrutiny, but it's also something we want to embed in the community scrutiny panels. It's something that the pilot one in Hackney has done some in-depth work on, the use of force in the community as well, because I know we're focusing on custody in this session, but obviously use of force within the community as well is a key area. So we're embedding it in that way, but I don't know, Kenny, if there's anything.
No, I would just say that's, Assemblyman to say that's what I've been talking about in terms of setting up this, of the DPIA, making sure that we're able to launch the dip samples of the use of force within custody from hopefully April, May, as of next year.
Yeah, so just one more question, Chair. I mean, has there been any studies done of the effectiveness of the scheme? It's been going on for many years, and one of the criticisms has been, and I'm going back many years now, I'm not abreast of recent developments as to how robust they are in terms of actually challenging the custody sergeant or things that they feel are not happening.
So I can only speak from our experience of working with ICVs and the ones that I've spoken to. And maybe that's because the ones that come to speak to me have real concerns. But I certainly do feel that our ICVs are not backwards at coming forwards in terms of saying what they are. Yeah. I recognise across community scrutiny that a common concern which is cited is that if people stay too long, they almost become too close to the Met and they start to know the people and they're less likely to offer criticism. And I recognise the concerns in that regard. What I would say is, speaking to the ICVs, having been at their award ceremony last year, I've certainly found them to be insightful and to be acting with integrity as far as I can see.
Also, if I may, Assembly Member Desai, this is something that I picked up directly with the appropriate adults as well, how confident that they feel, given the level of vulnerability that the detainees they work with, do they feel to challenge? And they were very clear on their roles and responsibilities in that space, because they're enabling justice to happen.
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. First of all, Ms. Bower, you spoke about managerial concerns, and certainly since the exposure of Charing Cross and what was happening there have been issues around hands-on management as well. I've spoken to an ICV representative who's been very clear that this is something that is being missed out. I wonder, could you tell us what you are aware of in terms of these concerns and what's been done to mitigate these concerns?
I'm very happy to pick up. So I think some of the concerns which have been raised is, for example, that inspectors cover multiple suites and that they don't have time to go in and look at that. Some of the other concerns are simply that those senior managers are not going in and being active enough in their supervision of people, and that is something which was also, I think, has been said by the Commissioner himself in that regard. I mentioned earlier the new system that they have for the Met Debt supers and chief inspectors to be going into an unannounced visits 3 times a week. They have taken a learning from Greater Manchester Police in terms of how to make those visits effective, because my challenge to them when they said that we're going to be doing that is, well, great, but like, how do you make sure it's not just a tick box, that somebody goes in and sits down and sort of says, well, I've been here for half an hour, I've had my cup of tea with my mate and everything's great. And they have sort of said, well, actually, that's exactly the question we were asking ourselves when I spoke to the commander about it. We've taken some learning from how Greater Manchester did this in order to make these visits effective. There is a full feedback form which gets sent into the centre so they're able to aggregate up and see what's happening and look at the quality of those forms. And that is happening as a result. In terms of wider management of the individual suites, the Commissioner obviously announced that they would be rotating everybody out of custody who had more than 2 years' worth of experience. Now, that is in order to make sure that the cultures which we saw festering in the Panorama programme are not happening. Now, he said that that will be everybody up to inspector level. They have said that the initial focus will be on sergeants. I don't have the exact nature of what the plan is because I believe there was only a senior level discussion about this yesterday. I haven't actually had a readout of what was said then. We did speak to the Met about it does this risk, I suppose, what you saw with HMICF's report into the Stephen Port murders, where it talked about young and experienced people arriving at a sudden death and then being supervised by people who were relatively inexperienced as well. And we asked the Metropolitan Police Director whether they were confident that there wasn't going to be too much of a loss of expertise in there. Their view is that it takes somebody about 6 months to become fully trained. When these new people come in, they will be shadowing somebody who is experienced, who has more, and who they think is going to be helping to set the right culture. And that is the work that they'll do. And then in terms of the DDOs, who are obviously...
Sorry, can you tell us what a DDO is, please?
Sorry, the detention officers, the police staff, if you like. Apologies. They, obviously, because of their contracts, are contracted into certain roles. But the idea within the Met is that they will rotate them around the suites so that they don't end up in the one suite as well. So sorry, that's quite a long answer. And I do recognise that there's lots of people in custody who are probably feeling unsure about what's happening at the moment, but I'm afraid, as I understand it, there was a discussion yesterday and I don't have the details of exactly how that's proposed to work.
Can I just add, Chair, that obviously ourselves and the ICV are feeding into the process of those proposals coming back and giving feedback. I also think it's important that we recognise that the Met post Charing Cross is looking moreover on the management and leadership through both the meeting that they had directly over afterwards, where they brought together 700 senior managers to say, you know, what are we doing here, where are our standards, and this has been built into for new Met for London too, but also the work they're doing through appraisals and future training development to make sure that this kind of curious, active management and leadership is driven forward.
Okay, thank you. And you actually did answer, in your answer, Kenny, you did answer the next question that I was going to ask you about retention of experience, but you've answered that and that's great. Thank you very much. So we've now come to the end of our session. I'd like to thank our guests for attending today and for the answers to our questions. Can I ask the committee to note the report and the discussion?
Noted.
Can I ask the committee to note the monthly report from MOPAC?
Noted.
Can we also delegate authority to me as chair in consultation with party group lead members to agree any output arising from this meeting?
Agreed.
Can I ask the committee to note its work programme?
Noted.
The next meeting of the committee is scheduled to take place on Thursday, the 18th of December 2025 at 1 p.m. or at the Rise of the London Assembly's Mayor's Question Time meeting, whichever is latest, in the chamber at City Hall. I have no urgent business, so that concludes today's meeting. Thank you very much.
Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by.